another member of Congress who has arrived. My colleague from the 18th Congressional District has come to join us today. And she has, of course, a bill that will deal with some of the hate that we have experienced. And her legislation is something that I support, and she supports my resolution to have a Department of Reconciliation. So at this time, I'm going to ask her, we were all instructed earlier, to be as brief as possible because of the number of speakers that we have. So I'm going to ask her to come forward with her comments. Okay, I made a mistake. I was under the impression that she was here. She is on her way. With that said, let me ask someone who is here to speak. That would be Representative Ron Reynolds. Representative Reynolds is a state representative who finds his way to all of the events that seem to involve people who are under assault.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to News Now from Fox. This is your Monday, April 5th, 2021 edition. Hope you guys are having a great morning so far and that you had a great Easter weekend. So again, thank you so much for tuning in to News Now from Fox. Taking a live look right now at the Capitol in Washington, D.C. We do have a live event going on this early in the morning, so I'm going to say hello here really quickly. Hello, my name is Pilar Arias. I'm coming at you live from the News Now from Fox East Coast Hub right here in Orlando, Florida. While I have a moment, I'd like to invite you to please join me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. All you have to do is search for Pilar News Now. I'd be happy to connect with you outside of the hours that I'm actually hosting the show. So like I said, we do have a live event going on right now. It is space related. I do want to let you know before we go there right this moment. So this is the coverage of the relocation of the SpaceX Crew Dragon Resilience from the ISS Harmony Ford port to the Harmony Zenith port. This is courtesy of NASA TV. We're going to watch live, raw, unfiltered this morning right here on News Now from Fox.
Tracking data and relay satellite systems. These are tracked and monitored, and we expect to regain communications with the station and Crew Dragon shortly. But more about what the crew members have been up to so far this morning. At 2:55 Central, 7:55 GMT, crew members Shannon Walker and Soichi Noguchi suited up before boarding Crew Dragon, while Victor Glover and Mike Hopkins waited until they finished closing Dragon's hatch before donning their suits. At 3:10, the 4 astronauts boarded Dragon for the port relocation maneuver, and at 3:26 Central, 8:26 GMT, the crew closed Dragon's hatch. Hopkins and Glover then put on those SpaceX spacesuits, which will be worn throughout today's maneuver. Once they finished suiting up, all 4 crew members performed leak checks on their suits. Once Dragon's hatch was closed, Kate Rubins affixed a docking target to the outside of the A-Pass hatch and then closed it, creating a space between Dragon and station known as the vestibule. Kate then made her way out of the pressurized mating adapter, leaving the forward hatch on node 2 open but ensuring the Zenith hatch is closed. She'll monitor the relocate maneuver from the cupola. Once all hatches were closed, a ground command was sent to open valves on the Dragon to begin depressurizing the vestibule at 3:57 Central, 8:57 GMT. This essentially vents the air from inside and brings it down close to a vacuum. They paused at approximately 5 psi for a few minutes to allow temperatures inside the vestibule to stabilize before continuing with that depressurization.
And that brings us up to speed with the events of the day. From this point forward, here is what to expect. At 5:15 Central Time or 10:15 GMT, teams in Mission Control Houston and Mission Control at SpaceX in Hawthorne do a joint go-no-go for undocking. About 10 minutes later, a undocking command will be sent, followed by a few minutes for the two umbilicals that connect power and data between the two spacecraft to detach, and for 12 hooks holding Dragon in place to retract. At 5:30 Central Time, after the hooks have retracted, Dragon will fire its thrusters in 2 short bursts to break the stiction between it and the docking port and physically separate from the station. Dragon will begin to slowly back off from the station and activate its LiDAR. And that happens in that blue section that you see on screen right now. LiDAR stands for Light Detection and Ranging, and it helps to begin tracking the space station. Once it acquires a solid signal, the ground will command Dragon to hold approximately 60 meters away from the station. And once everything looks good, Dragon will begin to move from in front of the station to above it, and that is the relocation maneuver or transition maneuver in the orange portion of the graphic that you see on screen. At about 5:38 Central Time, Dragon begins its maneuver towards the zenith port of Harmony and International Docking Adapter number 3. We expect Dragon to take about 15 minutes to make the trip above the station with a check-in halfway at what you'll hear called the midpoint. It will stop and hold once it's 60 meters above the Node 2 zenith port and prepare for final approach in that purple section.
And once we reach that area, flight controllers in Hawthorne will once again command Dragon to begin its approach, flying in until it reaches waypoint 2, which is just 20 meters away from the station. Once Dragon reaches 20 meters, it will hold one final time for teams on the ground and the astronauts aboard Dragon to do a final check before docking. If everything continues to go on schedule today, we expect to see that around 6:07 Central, 11:07 GMT. There aren't any strict requirements to complete docking during a day or night pass, but there's always the chance this hold could continue until the lighting conditions on the docking port are ideal. And once ready, Dragon will begin that final approach. Dragon will make initial contact with IDA-3 and its soft capture system will retract to bring the Dragon spacecraft in closer for hard capture. That's accomplished by deploying 12 hooks to firmly hold Dragon in place and takes about 15 minutes. After that, we will wrap up our coverage for the day.
After all docking events are successful, flight controllers will configure Dragon for docked operations, connecting power and data to the spacecraft once more. The crew will be able to get out of their spacesuits and set them up to dry and begin operations to get the hatches back open. This includes pressurizing the vestibule and a new round of leak checks. Depending on the exact timing, they have the option to have lunch inside Dragon or wait until back aboard the station. And we expect it to take about 2 hours before the hatches open, around 8:30 Central Time or 13:30 GMT.
Today marks the 140th day on station for this crew who lifted off from Kennedy Space Center on November 15th at 7:49 p.m. Eastern. Following a 27.5-hour trip to the station, Dragon's hatch was opened around 4 a.m. Eastern on November 16th. So far, the crew members have dedicated hundreds of hours to scientific research in the orbiting laboratory and have completed 5 spacewalks, finishing battery upgrades, connecting the Bartolomeo Science platform, and preparing the station for new solar arrays that will launch later this year on the SpaceX Cargo Dragon spacecraft. This is the first of 6 certified crew missions NASA and SpaceX planned as a part of the agency's commercial crew program.
As mentioned earlier, the relocation will free up Harmony's forward port for docking of another Crew Dragon vehicle set to carry 4 crew members to the station on NASA's SpaceX Crew 2 mission. NASA astronauts Shane Kimbrough and Megan MacArthur, JAXA astronauts Aki Hoshide, and European Space Agency astronaut Thomas Pesquet are scheduled to launch to the station Thursday, April 22nd, which just also happens to be Earth Day. They would arrive and dock to the station about 1 day after liftoff.
When the Crew 1 astronauts depart the station for return to Earth, which is currently targeted for April 28, the space-facing port of Harmony will be vacant. A Dragon cargo spacecraft carrying several tons of supplies and the first set of new solar arrays for the space station is scheduled to launch this summer and requires the space-facing port position to enable robotic extraction of the arrays from Dragon's trunk using Canadarm2.
For those just joining us, we are currently waiting the go, no-go call for departure of the Dragon Resilient spacecraft to push itself away from the International Space Station. We are expecting SpaceX and NASA to make that call around 5:15 a.m. Central Time. On screen right now is that Dragon Resilient spacecraft connected to International Docking Adapter 2. Once Dragon undocks, it will undergo an approximately 45-minute maneuver from one port to another. And while Dragon is a fully autonomous vehicle and can perform this port relocation maneuver all on its own, today our crew will be initiating a couple of commands along the way on those displays that were previously on screen. There are no technical reasons why the crew has to command anything, but the crew wanted to basically test drive the vehicle today, so to speak. The plan for future flights is that ground will send all of the commands and crew will just be monitoring Dragon's progress along the way. So for the maneuver today, you'll hear a couple of calls from the core in Hawthorne to the crew, giving them a go to send several commands, permitting Dragon to move through different checkpoints. Again, we are about 3 minutes away from the expected call from SpaceX and NASA for departure of Dragon Resilient spacecraft.
And good news here in Houston. The team in Mission Control Houston for the International Space Station is go.
On the big loop. Final reconfigurations for undock are complete and nominal. The ground is go for undocking at the targeted undock sequence start time of 1025 UTC. Please confirm your visors are down and you are ready for undock and port relocation at the planned time.
And SpaceX from Dragon, copy, go for the undock. Visors are secure and closed.
Copy all.
Station Houston on 2 for Kate. Perform steps 2 through end in 1.602. Dragon departure monitoring.
Copy steps 2 through N in 1.602. Dragon departure monitoring. ISS crew is ready for Dragon undocking at 1025.
Copy all.
That's good news from the ground side here today. Both SpaceX and Mission Control Houston teams reporting that they are go for today's undock and that everything looks good with the systems aboard Crew Dragon and the International Space Station for a successful maneuver. Things continue to move along right on time, and we expect to see that departure beginning at 5:30 a.m. Central.
Preparation for this port relocation has taken place for weeks, but yesterday teams checked out Dragon systems preparing for today's departure, including the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicle Systems, or C2V2, a data stream from Crew Dragon to the station. At around 5:20 a.m. Central Time, we are expecting the call for vestibule to press to be completed just a few minutes from now. And SpaceX performed a checkout of Dragon's propulsion systems and guidance navigation control, as well as checked out the Crew Dragon's seat actuators. In the afternoon, the SpaceX team tested the tracking data and relay satellite system, or TDRS, on the spacecraft, and that allows space-to-ground communication.
A little more about the preparations prior to today. Yesterday, Shannon Walker also spent some time removing computers from Dragon that have been stored in the spacecraft but are used on the station. Soichi Noguchi continued that work this morning, and prior to boarding Crew Dragon, Glover and Walker worked to remove any emergency hardware inside Crew Dragon, transferring that to the station side. Mike Hopkins, of course, packed away the sleep station where he has been staying inside Crew Dragon during its journey to the space station.
All right, everybody, good morning. You're watching News Now from Fox. Pilar Arias here with you with the News Now from Fox East Coast Hub. You have me as your host all the way until 11 o'clock Eastern when we pass things off to the News Now from Fox headquarters in Phoenix, Arizona. We've been watching live coverage from NASA TV. This is the SpaceX Crew Dragon relocation from ISS, which stands for International Space Station, Harmony Forward Port to Zenith. Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. More News Now from Fox is next.
IDA 2.
And for those just joining us, we are just beginning the mission, so to speak, of the Crew Dragon relocation from International Docking Adapter 2 to the space-facing port International Docking Adapter 3 to make room for the next crew vehicle that will be launched. We're targeting April 22nd. And we just a few minutes ago, we got the confirmation for a go of undocking. And as Leah mentioned, we're expecting that to happen in a few minutes here.
April is quite a busy month aboard the International Space Station. Coming up this Friday, we have the next launch to the station. That's Soyuz MS-18 with one NASA astronaut, Mark Vande Hei, and 2 Roscosmos cosmonauts, Oleg Novitsky and Pyotr Dubrov, heading toward the International Space Station. And once they arrive, we will have 10 crew members on the station. That won't be for too long, though, because on April 16th, Kate Rubins, Sergei Ryzhikov, and Sergei Kutsverchkov will depart aboard their Soyuz MS-17. However, on April 22nd, Crew 2 will launch. That's Megan MacArthur, Shane Kimbrough, Thomas Pesquet, and Akihiko Hoshide. And then on April 28th, Crew 1, the crew that we are watching today on board Crew Dragon, will depart the space station, but this time for Earth. That's Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, Shannon Walker, and Soichi Noguchi. However, today is just a field trip outside the orbiting laboratory, moving from one parking spot to another to allow for Crew 2 to arrive on April 22nd, as well as that Crew Cargo Dragon to arrive later this year with those solar arrays.
And on screen right now is a view of the crew inside of Dragon and their displays. Again, they will be sending a few commands today during the port relocation. And there's Dragon attached to International Docking Adapter 2. A little bit about the upgraded Dragon vehicle. Dragon 1 to dock required berthing, and berthing is where the International Space Station will sort of send out a robotic arm and grab the previous edition of Dragon and connect it with the ISS. Dragon 2, the vehicle that you see on screen, can do autonomous docking all on its own and will not require berthing or that robotic arm from the International Space Station.
The technology we have now with this autonomous docking aboard Crew Dragon has been implemented in the new version of Cargo Dragon, which we mentioned will be arriving later this year with those solar arrays. The International Space Station is currently flying 268 statute miles over the South Atlantic Ocean to the east of Uruguay.
We are about 5 minutes away from Dragon's hooks to start opening up, and sort of the initiation sequence of undocking from Dragon from the International Space Station. We are expecting a call out for vestibule to press complete here any moment now.
We've been discussing that undocking. We expect to see that around 5:30, but the command being sent a few minutes early because it takes a few minutes for those hooks to unlatch from the International Space Station, as well as the retraction of the umbilical, which provides power and data from the space station to Crew Dragon.
The entire maneuver today from undocking to redocking on the new port, we're expecting to take approximately 45 minutes. Again, this is to make room for the new Dragon that is being launched on Earth Day this year, April 22nd.
Undocking in Crew Dragon looks a little bit different than undocking in a Soyuz spacecraft. There are no springs that push the vehicle away from the space station, so instead we'll see the vehicle fire 2 short burns from those service section Draco thrusters, and that will break any stiction between Crew Dragon and the space station. You can see the nose cone open on Crew Dragon right now. There are also some forward bulkhead thrusters that live underneath the nose cone, but of course we won't be using those today. These service section Dracos are used for maneuvers when we are around the International Space Station and need to be very careful of Dragon's position.
We're about a minute away from the expected command to open up Dragon's hooks at approximately 5:25 a.m. Central Time. During this stage, we'll have the umbilicals retract away. Those are what send power and Dragon send power and data to the Dragon. And for the hooks, we have 12 hooks in total. They're made up of 2 sets of 6s.
This view over the shoulders of Mike Hopkins and Victor Glover as they look at the displays on Crew Dragon. As we've mentioned, this is an autonomous vehicle, and so there will be a few commands sent by the crew today, but Kate Rubens is monitoring from the space station.
On the big loop, undock sequence commanded.
And copy, see the same.
And right on time at 5:25 a.m. Central, we have confirmation that the undock sequence has begun, that command being sent to Crew Dragon to begin opening up those hooks.
And just prior to this, the vestibule depress did complete. We didn't hear a call out, but the vestibule is the space between Dragon and station hatches that will be exposed.
Umbilical demate complete and nominal.
You heard the call that the umbilicals are starting to retract. The vestibule is the space between Dragon and station hatches that will be exposed to the vacuum of space following undocking. Ground controllers command Dragon to begin to depress, opening a valve on the Dragon side to slowly remove the air from the vestibule. Once completed, the teams then execute leak checks on Dragon and station to ensure both sides are airtight prior to the undocking command that was just sent. And we reverse this process once Dragon is docked, taking air from the station and pressurizing the vestibule before hatches are reopened.
Again, everybody, most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. More news now from Fox is next.
Things continuing smoothly for Crew Dragon. We heard that the umbilical had successfully retracted, and now the hooks are opening. There are 2 sets of 6, meaning 12 hooks in total, and we are watching those hooks retract. Hearing nominal calls here on the ground, meaning everything is looking good.
And on screen is the Dragon Resilient spacecraft. Dragon is comprised of 2 parts. The right-hand side, the
big loop, first set of hooks open and nominal.
Continuing to hear good news. The first set of hooks has opened up nominally. The conical section, the right-hand side of Dragon, that is where the crew is at. That is the capsule portion of the Dragon vehicle. On the left-hand side, the left half is the trunk section. You'll notice that the top half is black. Those are solar panels built into the trunk. If you've been following the Dragon program, you'll know that the Dragon 1 configuration had solar arrays that would deploy post liftoff. But this was one of the upgrades to the Dragon vehicle.
In that trunk portion, there can be unpressurized cargo delivered to station. And as we mentioned, the spacecraft itself on the right, Crew Dragon, is the only piece that returns to Earth. That trunk is jettisoned prior to the astronauts re-entering Earth's atmosphere, and that burns up harmlessly over the ocean. However, Crew Dragon itself splashes down. Second set of hooks continues to open, and we will be watching for physical movement and physical separation of the Crew Dragon vehicle from the International Space Station shortly.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop, all hooks open and nominal.
And you can see on screen, Dragon Resilient spacecraft has undocked from the International Space Station at 3:30.
Dragon separation confirmed.
And what a view to see at 3:30. Dragon spacecraft has undocked from the International Space Station at approximately 3:30 Central Time, just off the coast of West Africa or Liberia. So we had a couple of undocking burns. The first burn lasted about
on the big loop. Relocate burn 0, complete and nominal.
Dragon.
We had a couple of burns. The first undocking burn was about a second and a half, and the second burn lasted for about 5 seconds. And
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop, we see the same.
And you heard the call out just a few seconds ago for the relocation burn 0, and that lasted about 21 seconds. Again, we did get confirmation of undocking at 5:30 a.m. Central Time, 10:30 GMT, while the station and Dragon were flying 263 statute miles over the Atlantic Ocean to the south of Liberia.
Everything.
Dragon used. Sorry, Leah, go ahead.
Thanks. Everything continuing well for Dragon on its maneuver.
2 minutes. Source lot 4, enable. ISS thrusters enabled.
Copy and concur.
And now about 2 minutes into this relocation, which we expect to last about 45 minutes, Crew Dragon continues to back away from its former home on International Docking Adapter 2.
And as it backs up.
Pretty cool stuff this morning here, live, raw, unfiltered on News Now from Fox, everyone, courtesy of NASA TV. Again, good morning, everyone. My name is Pilar Arias. I'm coming at you live from the News Now from Fox East Coast Hub right here in Orlando, Florida. So thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I do have your morning brief ready to go for you. It's the top stories from across the country that you want and need to know about as you start your day. We are about 7 minutes away from taking Fox's Doug Luzader live in Washington, D.C. with the latest on immigration, but I do have a little bit of an update for you right here on News Now from Fox while I play this video for you here. This is a story that we've been covering for quite some time. Critics are calling the situation at the border both a humanitarian and a national security crisis as thousands of undocumented migrants try gaining asylum. As you can see here, the situation at the border is intensifying. Customs authorities revealing new preliminary numbers from March cite more than 170,000 migrants entering U.S. custody last month amid a global pandemic, marking the highest influx of illegal crossings in roughly 15 years. Federal agents are facing an especially difficult task as unaccompanied minors are continuing to flood the border. Most are ending up in crowded facilities as they await asylum hearings. Critics on Capitol Hill say President Biden's soft stance on immigration is creating more problems, especially in the midst of a public health crisis. But others believe migrants are seeing a welcome mat, not a stop sign at the border. And still many agents are stuck in a hard place, understanding the importance of law and order while seeing a humanitarian crisis unfold. Roughly 300 kids cross over into the U.S. each and every day. Continuing on with your morning brief here, talking about President Biden's infrastructure plan as well. This is another top story we have been following. His proposed $2 trillion plan is on the minds of many lawmakers right now. Critics say it is too expensive, and some parts of the proposal do not address infrastructure. Some Democrats say it's a once-in-a-lifetime bill. As you can see there, President Biden wants Congress to think big and spend big when it comes to his investment in infrastructure, government programs, as well as education. You see Pete Buttigieg right there. The president putting forth a plan last week that covers a lot of ground, including some $600 billion in transportation improvements, $200 billion for housing, school, government facility upgrades, money for research and development, and also money to fix the nation's power infrastructure. The president has tasked 5 cabinet secretaries to push his spending bill forward. This weekend, some of those same officials, they hit the airwaves to try to sell this plan both in the country and Congress. Now, Republicans say they're all for repairing broken roads, bridges, and airports. They're all for infrastructure improvement, but they argue the plan that's being pushed forward by the White House spends a lot of money on projects completely unrelated to infrastructure. Republicans also think the possibility of raising the tax rate on corporate America could kill job growth. A jobs report on Friday showed employers added some 916,000 jobs last month. The unemployment rate also dropping just a little bit to 6%. Still, the White House thinks this is going to be the best way to pay for the plan. So we will continue to follow that there. Let's also take a live look right now at Capitol Hill while we talk about this next top story for you in the morning brief right here on NewsNOW from Fox. Again, here is a live look there at Capitol Hill. Let's talk about what happened on Friday that essentially garnered the world's attention there yet again. The latest there with the Capitol Hill attack. The aftermath of the deadly attack is resonating with witnesses and the brave men and women who responded. Now officials are learning more about the suspect, whose mental health was slowly declining. A makeshift memorial is there along the fences surrounding Capitol Hill, honoring fallen officer William Evans. I do believe I have a typo there, everybody. Let me fix that for you right here. There we go, everyone. All right, the 18-year veteran of the force was killed Friday when a suspect, 25-year-old Noah Green, rammed his car into Evans and a fellow officer. Green then exited the vehicle and lunged at police with a knife, causing them to shoot and kill him. Footage shows officers running towards the scene shortly after the shots were fired. As police work to establish a potential motive, authorities are now revealing more about Noah Green's state of mind, saying he was experiencing suicidal thoughts and exhibiting signs of delusion and paranoia leading up to the incident. Witnesses say the impacts of the attack are weighing heavily on their minds. This attack follows the deadly Capitol Hill riot back in January, where another officer, Brian Sicknick, was among 5 people killed in the chaos. Elected officials remain in disbelief for sure, as you can imagine there. Again, another live look of Capitol Hill. The second officer struck Friday is stable, but the attack is now causing officials to question the safety of reopening Capitol Hill to the public, as you can imagine. All right, everybody, we are about 2.5, maybe 3 minutes away from Fox's Doug Luzader live in Washington, D.C., so most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. All right, everybody, welcome back to News Now from Fox. We're taking a live look at the West Coast, San Francisco, California right now, where it's not even 4 o'clock in the morning. We're going to go from the West Coast all the way back to the East Coast. Some shocking new numbers now show the extent of the crisis along the southern border. Fox News correspondent Doug Luzader is joining us live from Washington this morning. The Biden administration is trying to address the source of the problem. Good morning, Doug. How are you doing?
Good morning.
We just heard a report with the numbers that we are seeing at the border. Let's break those down. Those are unprecedented, right?
Well, we expect these numbers are going to come out in the coming days, the final numbers. The preliminary ones indicate that we had about 171,000 illegal immigrants apprehended last month. That's a very high number. I mean, the kind of number we haven't seen in a couple of decades, which indicates that there is a growing problem with this surge at the border, and it's not expected to abate anytime soon. Now, there are two kind of approaches that we're seeing here in Washington. Republicans are talking about dealing with the issue at the border, more border security, going back to some of the Trump administration policies of wait in Mexico and so on. The Biden administration has no intention to go back to those. Instead, they're looking at the source of the problem in Central America. That is very much a long-term potential solution. It will not affect things immediately. Their hope is that if you kind of prop up and help build up the economies in countries like Guatemala and El Salvador, you will make it make the United States less of a magnet for people to leave here, to come here for economic opportunity. That may work. I mean, our experience with nation building is, of course, kind of mixed in this country. Whether that's successful or not, though, we don't know how that's going to all play out. But it will not do things in the near term to address what's happening along the border.
Doug, what about the number of children that we see coming across into the U.S.? It's in the hundreds every day, is that right?
Well, this is the real problem that has vexed the Biden administration because of the legal parameters involved in housing children. They can only be held in these temporary border facilities initially for a 72-hour period that is being routinely violated. So where you put these kids is a real issue, and we're seeing more and more facilities kind of popping up. Some of them, a fair distance from the border itself, and then you have issues with trying to figure out, where these kids really belong, trying to find relatives, trying to house them, feed them, clothe them, educate them. This all of a sudden takes on a multi-dimensional kind of challenge. So how they're going to deal with this in the longer term just isn't clear. But the numbers are expected to, if anything, get worse in the months ahead as we enter into the traditional kind of seasonal upticks in immigration across the border.
All right, Fox's Doug Luzader joining us live here this morning. Thank you so much for breaking it down for us.
Thanks so much.
Take another live look, everybody, just outside of the Fox News headquarters in New York City. Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. More News Now from Fox is next.
Japan. He was selected as an astronaut by Japan in 1996, has degrees in aeronautical engineering, and is a doctor of philosophy in advanced interdisciplinary studies. He previously flew on STS-114 on the Space Shuttle Discovery and on the Russian Soyuz as a member of the Expedition 22-23 crew. While on STS-114, he became the first Japanese astronaut to perform spacewalks on the International Space Station, completing 3 spacewalks totaling 20 hours. Noguchi is only one of 3 people to have flown on 3 different spacecraft, the Space Shuttle, a Russian Soyuz, and now a Crew Dragon.
Crew Dragon continues making its axis transition from in front of the IDA-2 to IDA-3, things moving smoothly and about 57 meters away from the space station.
Both Crew Dragon and the International Space Station, are currently still orbiting over the Earth. They're right over the Black Sea right now. Again, we are expecting to reach that midpoint between the two docking axes here in a few minutes.
And a reminder today, if you're just joining us, of why this port relocation is happening. In just a few weeks, we expect to see Crew 2, the second Crew Dragon long-duration mission, launch to the International Space Station, and they will be docking to the port that was just vacated by Crew 1 aboard Crew Dragon Resilience. And after the departure of Crew 1 for Earth later this month, we also will see the arrival of a cargo Dragon later this summer, bringing new solar arrays to the station. And that zenith or space-facing port is the proper position for those solar arrays to be extracted from Dragon's trunk. Undocking occurred right on time today at 5:30 a.m. Central, 10:30 GMT. Things continue to move smoothly, and we expect to see Dragon make contact with the station once again.
All right, everybody, welcome back to News Now from Fox. We're taking a live look courtesy of NASA TV. This is a SpaceX Crew Dragon. This is the relocation of Resilience from the ISS Harmony Forward port to the Harmony Zenith port. Again, we are watching it live, raw, unfiltered, right here on News Now from Fox, courtesy of NASA TV. But we are going to continue on with your morning brief, the top stories that you want and need to know about. Coming up next here on News Now from Fox, I do want to show you, everybody, I'm being told that this is New Orleans, Louisiana. I've never been. I would love to get out there ASAP. I cannot wait for the pandemic to officially be over so I can start traveling again, but it is fun to travel with each and every one of you this morning and every morning on News Now from Fox. All right, so this is one of my favorite top stories to bring you each and every day. It's the business briefs, and we're learning that gas prices continue to skyrocket and unemployment numbers have fallen slightly. This is Jerry Willis reporting.
Economy added 916,000 jobs in March. Businesses going on a hiring spree. The U.S. economy added 916,000 jobs in March. That was way more than expected and the highest amount since last August. The unemployment rate dropping from 6.2% to 6%. The surge in new hiring happening as states were loosening lockdown requirements. We won't know how the stock market reacts to the positive news until Monday, as Wall Street was closed for Good Friday, but it was a good week. All the major indexes were up, with the S&P 500 closing above 4,000 for the first time ever. It's a good thing the Easter Bunny hops and doesn't have to drive. That's because gas prices are 90 cents higher than this time last year. The national average for a gallon of regular is now $2.87. And finally, it looks like the Easter Bunny is planning to be mighty generous with the money not being spent on gas. A new survey by the company Hyundai finds parents are planning to buy their kids an average of 4 bags of candy this year. That's business. I'm Jerry Willis.
That is a lot of candy, everybody. All right, good morning. My name is Pilar Arias. I'm coming at you live from Mission Control here in Orlando, Florida. It's the sets where all the beauty and magic of the show happens. You can see here there's lots of buttons to push and there's lots of levers and the like. You don't just hear or see the News Now from Fox host. We do the entire show. That's right, the graphics, the audio, the video. So as always, we thank you for your patience and understanding because, you know, sometimes the show has its technical difficulties and its quirks, but we just continue on with our day. So again, as you can see, matter of fact, I'm actually adjusting the camera while I am speaking to you guys, trying to get a little bit of a different vantage point here, get out some of that background noise as well. So just you can focus on the set here and the beauty and magic of the show. So good morning, happy Monday. I hope you guys all had a fantastic Easter weekend. It was interesting to see the footage of a lot of people getting back to church now that coronavirus vaccinations are making their rounds across the country. Still saw some changes, some socially distanced services, but again, people are gathering together again now that vaccinations are underway. I know here in the state of Florida, they are opening up vaccinations to any adult starting today. So lots of changes happening across the country and more availability for those who are wanting the coronavirus vaccines, 3 of them being distributed across the U.S. So again, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. We've got gorgeous live pictures across the country, like this one, for instance, San Francisco, California. I have been. It is a beautiful city anytime, day or night, and just really cool to take a look at, right? Again, we are continuing on with your morning brief, the top stories that you want and need to know about as you start your day. It's the water cooler stories, the ones that you're going to want to talk about with your family, your friends, your coworkers, everybody you know. You're going to say, hey, did you get up to speed with that story on NewsNOW from Fox? And then they're going to say, no, I didn't, or what's NewsNOW from Fox? And you're going to fill them in and let them know that they can go to newsnowfox.com. Again, that's newsnowfox.com. to get the very latest news that they want and need to know about. So we're going to head on out to the state of Georgia for this next top story here. It's a talker for sure. Major League Baseball's decision to move the All-Star game out of Georgia not sitting well with the state's governor, who is vowing to put up a fight. Fox News correspondent Steve Harrigan has that story from Atlanta.
Major League Baseball caved to fear and lies from liberal activists. They ignored the facts of our new election integrity law, and they ignored the consequences of their decision on our local community.
Georgia's governor taking a swing at Major League Baseball after the league announced it would move its annual All-Star game out of Atlanta in response to a new state voting law that the president and some civil rights groups have called voter suppression.
The very people who are victimized the most are the people who are the leaders in these various sports. And it's just not right. This is Jim Crow on steroids, what they're doing in Georgia.
Former Presidents Barack Obama and Donald Trump both weighing in on Saturday. Obama congratulating the league for taking a stand on behalf of voting rights, while Trump called on Americans to boycott baseball and all of the woke companies that are interfering with free and fair elections. Among other things, the law requires voters to show ID to vote and makes changes to ballot drop boxes and how voters can request an absentee ballot. Republicans say those changes are needed to shore up confidence in the state's elections.
In Georgia, we have as many early voting days as anybody in the country. We've got no excuse absentee, but we also want to make sure the election's secure and that all Georgians have confidence in it.
It's not clear which city yet will get the game. Last year's game brought in roughly $90 million. In Atlanta, Steve Harrigan, Fox News.
All right, taking a live look now, everybody, at Capitol Hill. I do want to see if I might be able to find you a live picture out here in the Orlando area. I believe it or not, Clearwater Beach already looks gorgeous this morning. The port camera. Okay, that's close enough. Port Canaveral. There's a reason I'm bringing you out here to Florida next, everybody, on NewsNOW from Fox. It takes just a minute for the live picture to come in. And here we go. Port Canaveral, Florida. Absolutely positively gorgeous. Am I right? The sun is rising here on the East Coast. We get to watch it together. All right, so this next top story I have for you. Nearly 100 guests at a Florida hotel getting a rude awakening, being told they need to pack their bags and leave the hotel immediately. Fox's David Bodden reports from Kissimmee, which is right here near Orlando.
Families are going to be out in the street. What are we supposed to do?
That is exactly what guests at Champions World Resort in Kissimmee are wondering. Andrea Sky says that she's been staying at the motel for the last week. She wrote to Fox 35 shortly after getting a call this morning from a member of their staff.
He indicated he was the general manager, that he'd been just informed that the hotel had been sold and that all staff and guests needed to vacate the property today.
Throughout the afternoon, guests packed up and headed out. Someone from the hotel was busy going door to door, checking to see if rooms were empty and that the place was all locked up. Meanwhile, many guests wonder what their next move will be. Some prepaid for their stay here and are wondering about refunds.
He said, well, we've notified the third-party agencies, and they will be doing a refund.
For Victoria Oquendo and her 14 other family members, this trip was a spring break vacation that fell apart midway.
We've been here already a week. They didn't give us no notifications or anything. It was just right there and then. Get out. Yeah, that's it. Just get out.
She says her money is limited, and having to wait for a refund is going to make finding a new place for her large family nearly impossible.
It's not like we can just book 1 room, 2 rooms. No, we need to book multiple rooms. And at this, it's spring break. Everything is super expensive.
I'm David Bowden, Fox 35 News.
Super expensive and already taken up this time of year out here in Florida. Take another live look, everybody, just outside of the Fox News headquarters in New York City. It is a gorgeous Monday morning. You see a lot of New Yorkers heading off to work, school, perhaps both. I know during my college days, I was in that boat where I did both. It is currently 49 degrees in Manhattan this April 5th, 2021, and they are expected to reach a high of 67 today. Not too bad. Their top story on fox5newyork.com, they're wondering, is a 4th wave of coronavirus upon us? Interesting stuff there. Again, that's on fox5newyork.com. There's a reason I took you out to New York here, everybody. There always is, am I right? Coming up next here on News Now from Fox. A New York City comedy club gets a star-studded headliner for its first night open in more than a year. Native New Yorker and iconic comedian Jerry Seinfeld hopes to give live venues the shot in the arm they need to make it through the pandemic. Fox's Briella Tomasetti has the story.
It felt like getting electrocuted in a good way. The audience was great, and I was actually feeling like, can I still do this? You know, I don't know if you wonder if you remember. It's like not playing tennis for a year. And so as soon as I got up, the audience exploded, and I just felt so at home. And I mean, I love this club, and I love performing in New York. So I didn't want to get emotional, but I'm really excited to be helping to bring it back.
Yes, believe it or not, even Jerry Seinfeld still gets the pre-performance jitters. The New York born and bred sitcom legend headlined a sold-out show in Chelsea on Friday. The very first night Gotham Comedy Club has opened its doors in over a year.
He just called and said, I want to come down tonight. And I said, absolutely, let's do it. And then he tweeted it out, and here we are. It's a nice thing. He's been a great friend to the club.
And so the show will finally go on at Gotham 7 nights a week, except at 33% capacity with about 100 audience members at most.
On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say I'm ordering like 10 rounds of drinks for everyone. Yeah.
The other 2/3 of the comedy club's tables and chairs will remain empty, at least for the time being. It's a formula that doesn't work for everyone.
We can't make it work financially at 33%.
Nevertheless, live venues and performers are still powering their way through the pandemic and adjusting to the changes brought on by COVID-19. As for what the future holds, well, perhaps Seinfeld said it best.
Oh, New York is going to come back. I've been in LA, I've been in Florida, and you know, there's a lot of great places in this country, but no place feels like this place.
Of course, no place feels like New York City. Again, everybody, good morning. You're watching News Now from Fox. My name is Pilar Arias. I'm coming at you live from the East Coast Hub right here in Orlando, Florida. We are now at the top of the 7 o'clock hour. Good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're just joining us, I hope you had a fabulous Easter weekend. We just spoke with Fox's Doug Luzader talking about the immigration crisis at the border between the U.S. and Mexico. But I do have his latest report that I want to play for you as well for those who may have missed it. So again, this is Doug Luzader with the latest on the immigration crisis.
Officials from the Biden administration will travel to Guatemala and El Salvador this week in an attempt to deal with this problem at its source, but that may not do much in the near term. They just keep coming. And new numbers from Customs and Border Patrol are expected to show that 171,000 immigrants were caught entering the country just last month, levels we haven't seen in decades. Members of Congress have been raising the alarm by visiting some of the detention facilities near the border. And one senator says he was told to delete images from his phone.
They are crammed in like sardines, and this is what the Biden administration is trying to hide from the American public, which is why we took video and the Biden administration tried to stop us.
And despite the images and the shocking numbers, the Biden administration has consistently maintained that the border is closed and secure. Vice President Kamala Harris has been charged with dealing with Central American countries in an attempt to stem the flow of immigrants. Administration officials still won't call the situation a crisis, but they continue to struggle to find facilities to house thousands of unaccompanied children.
These numbers are certainly, we are not naive about the challenge, but what our focus is on is solutions and actions to help address the unaccompanied minors who are coming across the border.
And according to the Washington Post, last month's numbers include some 19,000 unaccompanied children. In Washington, Doug Luzader, Fox News.
All right, everybody, I do want to take you out to Fox 9 Minneapolis. Now that it's the top of the hour, they are covering the Chauvin trial. Let's listen in.
Seen in one of the videos of George Floyd in court is in the Hennepin County Jail. Maurice Hall is held on domestic abuse charges. He's the man seen with George Floyd when police approached him for allegedly using a counterfeit bill. The charges are not related to the trial of Derek Chauvin. He recently told the court he will plead the Fifth Amendment if he is asked to testify. Hall's court appearance is scheduled for today. The suspect in a mass shooting at a Southern California office building is set to be arrested.
All right, everybody, looks like we got the tail end there of the Derek Chauvin trial coverage. Again, it is expected to resume at 10:30 Eastern this morning. We will have it here for you live, raw, unfiltered on NewsNOW from Fox. Usually at 10 o'clock in the morning, we do start with Fox 9 Minneapolis' special coverage of the trial. They've been staying on top of it, and we are airing it from gavel to gavel right here on NewsNOW from Fox. But I do want to continue on with your morning brief. It's the top stories that you want and need to know about from across the country, and perhaps just a little bit of curiosity in terms of what you'd like to see as well. Am I right? Perhaps you're shopping for a new vehicle. It appears the new Hyundai Elantra got a top award for many of its unique features. Fox's Gary Gastilow takes you behind the wheel.
This is the 2021 Hyundai Elantra, also known as the North American Car of the Year. And I do mean car. Utility vehicles and trucks have their own awards because a lot more of those are sold than coupes and convertibles and sedans like this. But of the new ones coming out this year, this is apparently the best. At least according to the panel of journalists that voted on the award, which I was not included on, possibly because they can't handle the truth. So here it is. First, grab a dictionary and look up the word polyhedron, because that's the predominant shape used for the Elantra's edgy design. Inside, it has a very roomy interior for a compact and contemporary styling with gray fabric trim, a contrast color cockpit effect for the driver, and dual widescreen digital displays. There's also this circle over here that looks like some sort of futuristic speaker or control panel, maybe a portal to another dimension, but it's actually just a design that doesn't do anything except drive me crazy. The Elantra starts at $20,655, and this top-of-the-line fully loaded limited is $26,455. It has a 147 horsepower, 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, not turbocharged, and a continuously variable transmission, which doesn't have gears and kind of delivers the power like a motorboat when you hit the accelerator, which not everyone likes. But they should like the fuel economy because the Elantras have ratings between 41 and 43 miles per gallon on the highway, which is best in class. The Limited also comes with a wide array of electronic driver aids, including adaptive cruise control and a lane centering system that's not technically hands-free, but look at this, it's steering the car within a lane. And now it's scolding me for taking my hands off the wheel too long, so I'm gonna put them back on. All things considered, it's really hard to find something bad to say about the Elantra, but easy to find good things to say about it. So I'd say it's a winner overall. But did it deserve to win the Car of the Year title? Well, to be fair, there are only about a dozen vehicles that were eligible this year, so it doesn't mean quite as much as it used to. That said, of all the sedans I've tested this year, this one is easily the best. It's also the only one because there just aren't that many cars to test anymore. in the 2021 Hyundai Elantra. Gary Gastelou, Fox News.
The best, but also the only. Taking a live look now, everybody. Port Canaveral, Florida. The sun is rising here on the East Coast, and it looks absolutely positively gorgeous. You know, my favorite sunrises are actually when the colors and the hues look like sunsets, like this one. Am I right? You see the pinks and the blues and the purples, but yeah, there's some like orange in there as well. And I do want to say a color, but I want to make sure that I'm absolutely right in this color. I mean, I guess auburn a little bit? No, it's beautiful regardless, and I wanted to bring it to you right here on News Now from Fox. We are just past the 7 o'clock hour here. I hope you guys all had a fabulous Easter weekend. Look at that, everybody. The sun's peeking through right there. Look at the, like, right there by that silo, just to the left of it. Absolutely positively gorgeous. It is April 5th, 2021. If you're wondering, hey, are my taxes due in 10 days? It's usually April 15th, right? Tax day has been pushed back a month amid the coronavirus pandemic. So that is the latest there. Again, everybody, I hope you are having a great day. Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. More News Now from Fox is on the other end of that. All right, everybody, welcome back to News Now from Fox. We're going to stay in Florida for this next update I have for you. The Piney Point Reservoir leak. Workers are rushing to get extra pumps online to avoid what is being called a, quote, catastrophic failure. A controlled release of water continues at the site for the Piney Point phosphate plant in Manatee County, which began leaking late last month. Over the weekend, Governor Ron DeSantis declared a state of emergency for Manatee, Pinellas, and Hillsborough counties to ensure resources are allocated for necessary response and recovery. Officials said 2 to 3 million gallons of water per day have been flowing through a leak in a containment wall for the past week. Let's get the latest from Fox 13 in Tampa.
At this hour, the rush is on for engineers to get those additional pumps that were brought in, airlifted from the National Guard yesterday, to try and pump the water out, relieve the pressure off of this containment wall to prevent a catastrophic failure. There is fear the wall could collapse at any moment. 316 homes remain under an evacuation notice in Manatee County. The National Guard, they flew in more than 20 additional pumps to help drain the water in a controlled release into Tampa Bay. The Sheriff's Office, they tell us that they've had to move more than 300 inmates from the Manatee County Jail to get them off the first floor in the event of a worst-case scenario. They could be looking at a foot of water on floor 1. County and well water drinking supplies, we're told, are still safe in the county. And officials say that their work here to drain the containment pond is in fact working. The pond had about 480 million gallons of water in it. Now the county says it's down to 300 million gallons left.
If we should have a full breach, within minutes, we're down to about 340 million gallons that could breach in totality in a period of minutes, and the models for less than an hour are as high of a 20-foot wall of water.
Some background here, this is a former fertilizer plant that has been closed for about 2 decades. The Florida Department of Environmental Protection says the water is mainly a mix of salt water with storm water. It's not considered radioactive, but the water has nutrients and a lot of heavy nitrates that are not exactly good to the environment. It's harmful for the environment, and there's fear that this could fuel algae blooms. The FAA, they've restricted the airspace above at this hour. They are working to get control of this situation, but this is still very much a crisis level scenario. Dan Maddox, Fox 35 News.
All right, everybody, and here is a look at some drone footage there of the area. Piney Point Reservoir right here in Florida, where crews are working to prevent the collapse of a large wastewater pond to avoid a catastrophic flood. Manatee County officials say the latest models show that a breach at the old phosphate plant reservoir in the Tampa Bay area could gush out 340 million gallons of water in a matter of minutes, risking a 20 feet high wall of water. So very serious situation out there that we are going to continue to follow here today on NewsNOW from Fox. Now, there were actually several different updates yesterday. I'm going to show you the one with Governor Ron DeSantis first, and then I will show you the most recent one as well. But again, this is a very, very dangerous situation out there in Manatee County.
Morning, we had emergency management and DEP officials as well with us. And as you know, yesterday, due to potential of a breach of the South Reservoir at Piney Point facility, I issued an executive order declaring a state of emergency in Manatee as well as in Hillsborough and Pinellas counties due to the proximity of these counties to the Eastport terminal facility. This will ensure that all state resources are available for response and for recovery. At my direction, the State Division of Emergency Management, Manatee County Emergency Management, and Department of Environmental Protection response teams are all coordinating to ensure proper response and mitigation of risks in Manatee County and in impact areas. And what we're looking at now is trying to prevent and respond to, if need be, a real catastrophic flood situation. There was talk about the type of water. I'll say something to that in a minute. But the water quality issues that are flowing from this for us is less than the risk of everyone's health and safety, particularly folks who may live in the area. And so public health and safety is the top priority. Obviously, we want to protect that in a way that minimizes any of the environmental impacts. But the goal is to ensure the integrity of the stack system as quickly as possible in order to minimize impacts to local residents and to prevent an uncontrolled discharge. So according to on-site engineers, a controlled release was necessary to prevent a catastrophic failure. Controlled discharges began on March 30th and continue today. The controlled discharges are averaging about 35 million gallons per day. Manatee County public safety officials sent out evacuation notices to residents and businesses in the surrounding area and assisted with the evacuation of 316 homes that were in the evacuation zone near Piney Point. I would encourage residents in the evacuated area to call Manatee County's call center at 311, and their operators will assist you with providing a place of shelter. And I know the county and the Red Cross have already put up a number of families in local hotels Now, updates are being provided online at protectingfloridatogether.gov/Piney Point update. I also want to be clear, while foremost concern is ensuring the safety of the community, our administration is dedicated to full enforcement of any damages to our state's resources and holding the company, HRK, accountable for this event. This is not acceptable. It's not something we will allow to persist. I've asked Secretary Valenstein to work with Manatee County and utilize all available resources to form a permanent solution to this longstanding issue. But to be clear, the water being discharged to Port Manatee is not radioactive. It is primarily salt water from the Port Manatee Dredge Project mixed with legacy process water and stormwater runoff. The water was tested prior to discharges. The primary concern is nutrients. The water meets water quality standards for marine waters, with the exception primarily of the phosphorus and the nitrogen. And the DEP staff, working with local stakeholders, began water quality monitoring on March 30th and will continue monitoring daily. To date, dissolved oxygen, salinity, and pH all meet water quality standards. Additional water quality information, including additional parameters, will be available in the coming days. So we've done a number of things. The Florida National Guard is in the process of dropping off additional pumps via air on top of the berms to help decrease the water levels in the Piney Point Reservoir at an even faster pace. These pumps will be fed into surrounding waterways in an effort to drain the reservoir so we can better mitigate the effects should a full breach of the site occur. And again, we're currently pumping out 33 million gallons per day. This new process will help to significantly increase the volume of water that we're pumping out of Piney Point. The Division of Emergency Management has deployed 20 pumps to the area. These pumps are moving water at a rate of 23,500 gallons per minute, more than 33 million gallons a day. We've also deployed 10 vacuum trucks. The Emergency Management Division is coordinating with Manatee County as well as the American Red Cross to provide sheltering and food as needed. We're also sending over 100,000 bottles of water to Manatee County. Now, it's unclear of the 316 homes that have been evacuated how many are on private versus public water supply, but we do know that there are no public water supply wells within the evacuation zone. If there's a breach, we'll have resources to test people with private water wells and will provide bottled water. The Emergency Management Division has also deployed an all-hazards incident management team to assist with local response efforts. Of course, also monitoring local roadways and also have the Department of Health on site. So we want to thank the folks in Manatee County for working collaboratively with us. We're hoping that we can just continue to get the water out in an efficient way and to prevent a catastrophic event. But we have to prepare that this could be something where you see further degradation. So I want to thank the folks in Manatee. We have Dr. Hopes here, and then we'll hear from some of our other folks.
Governor, on behalf of Manatee County government and our Board of County Commissioners, we cannot thank you enough for your expeditious support and deployment of these assets. Without your swift action at bringing in the equipment, flying in pumps, we would still be behind the ball on this. And I do believe with this action that we are in our best condition to avoid a catastrophic failure. Your team has been exceptional with DEP and Emergency Management Services, and I can't tell you, Governor, how relieved I am that you're here to handle this press conference and give the briefing. Thank you, and we look forward to working with your team in the days to come.
Governor, thank you. I want to thank the county, DEP for a well-coordinated effort even before the division arrived. As the governor highlighted, we've helped bring in additional equipment to help move the water out as fast as possible in a controlled way to help relieve that pressure. Later today, the National Guard will be putting additional pumps on the stacks via air to continue to try to move more water as fast as possible. That is obviously the mission at hand. I'd ask all the folks paying attention locally to heed all warnings that your local emergency management department may give. We don't believe any are on the horizon at this moment, but obviously please continue to pay attention to your local emergency management. Thank you.
Noah?
Thank you. My name is Noah Valenstein. I'm Secretary for the Department of Environmental Protection. Again, from the department's view, we've been working with the county and the Department of Emergency water out of the controlled discharge. The controlled discharge is focused towards the port of Manatee. Again, my name is Noah Valenstein. I'm the Secretary for the Department of Environmental Protection. Our focus is on supporting a controlled discharge of water from the site. Again, as the governor mentioned, this water is mainly salt water with some legacy processed water and rainwater in it. The main concern for the environment is nutrients, high nitrogen, phosphorus. The goal, again, is a controlled discharge to the port of Manatee. Again, that marine environment can better process that. Again, our focus is controlled discharge. We urge residents to visit mymanatee.org. If you're a Manatee resident, to call 311. Heed evacuation orders. Right now, again, from the department's perspective, the greatest danger of public health, safety, and welfare is flooding. Again, we at the agency have great expertise at working at any remediation for nutrients and ensuring the protection of the environment. And most importantly, we have been out on the water since before this event, monitoring, having a base to make sure we catch any to our natural resources so that we can fully enforce against irresponsible. Thank you.
Okay. Happy Easter. Any questions? I wouldn't want to put anything on it. I mean, I think obviously we have been concerned enough about it to do the state of emergency. I mean, if we didn't think that was a possibility, then we would have marshaled the assets that we're doing. And so, you know, we're preparing for that. Obviously, we hope that that doesn't happen, but you definitely need to prepare for it.
Other than the information you have right now, do you think something maybe could have been done previously to prevent us from getting here today?
You want to?
Thank you, Governor. I will tell you that as you know, this issue has been ongoing for a couple of decades, and what I have seen in the past 4 days from the governor's office is that I think all agencies and entities now are committed to a permanent resolution of this. In answer to your question, absolutely, this could have been resolved over 2 decades ago. Thank you.
What is the plan to repair this liner, and is there any immediate plan to stop that?
The question was, what is the plan to repair this liner? Based on the conversations with the governor and his experts, we won't be repairing the liner. We will be depleting the holding ponds of their water, and then we will be moving forward to a permanent solution into the future once we mitigate the current risk, which would probably include filling these ponds after they've been devoid of their contents and capping them, leaving a permanent solution that this will not reoccur anytime in the future. Well, as Mr. Moskowitz, relayed, listen to emergency management, call 311. If we should have a full breach, within minutes, we're down to about 340 million gallons that could breach in totality in a period of minutes, and the models for less than an hour are as high of a 20-foot wall of water. So if you're in an evacuation area and you have not heeded that, you need to think twice and follow the orders on mymanatee.org and 311. Thank you. The current models, which are updated as the volume reduces in the holding pond, only show 1 to 5 feet of water. The jail is a 2-story facility. The sheriff has moved the medical unit and all personnel up to the 2nd floor, which puts them well over 10 feet above the base level. So currently, the staff and the temporary residents of the jail are safe. They are secured. The ground floor of the facility has been sandbagged. through Vern Buchanan's office and Senator Scott. The EPA, my understanding is they're sending down a representative to be in the command center. Right now, all of these efforts are under the direction of the governor, and we are quite satisfied and pleased with the resources that the governor has deployed.
You mentioned flooding is the primary concern right now, but if there is a breach of the South Reservoir, are you worried there could be a destabilizing of the two other ponds and the radioactive elements that are in them?
I won't rule that out as a possibility. The engineers, the third-party engineers for HRK have indicated that based on their review, that they are currently stable. And if it were the eastern wall or the southeast corner, those other retention areas are to the north, and there's a substantive amount of dirt and fill in between them. And so right now the focus is we've got a good plan in place. And as I said, the governor is flying in pumps. They're being placed now in pipes. So we feel much better than we did 3 days ago with these additional assets being deployed, and we're going to about double the amount of water we're pumping out of that retention pond.
Can I step in just real quick? The question about sorry again, Noah Valenstein. On the northern pond you were mentioning, it has higher levels of metals. The radiologicals are still below surface water discharge standards. So again, this is not water we want to see leaving the site. The southern pond, as we mentioned, is mainly seawater, but just wanted to clarify and happy to provide information after this.
Sorry, for those people who are worried that hear radioactive elements in the water, which is what's being reported right now, you're saying that that's not a concern?
Correct.
And that's because
Yep. We'd be happy to share the constituents within that water, so you can go through. If you go to protectingfloridatogether.org to look at water quality sampling and stay tuned to that.
Mr. Valenstein, can you just clarify what the process is, where this water that's being drained out, where is it going, and how?
Again, everybody, this was the briefing on the Piney Point Reservoir leak that included Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. We also just got an update from Fox 13 Tampa. Again, workers are rushing to get extra pumps online to avoid what could be considered a catastrophic failure. A controlled release of water continues at the site for the Piney Point phosphate plant in Manatee County, which began leaking in late March. Over the weekend, Governor Ron DeSantis declared a state of emergency for Manatee, Pinellas, and Hillsborough counties to ensure resources are allocated for necessary response and recovery. Officials said 2 to 3 million gallons of water per day have been flowing through a leak in a containment wall for the past week. 20 additional pumps were airlifted and over the weekend by the Florida National Guard and are expected to be up and running today to help drain the water in a controlled release into Tampa Bay. A controlled release of water began on March 30th at a rate of 35 million gallons per day. The additional pumps will help pump 23,500 gallons of water per minute, or 33 million gallons of water per day into Tampa Bay at Port Manatee. Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. More news now from Fox is next. Welcome back, everybody, to News Now from Fox. Taking a live look at New Orleans, Louisiana, this gorgeous Monday morning. It's April 5th, 2021. Hope you guys all had a great Easter weekend. We're going to head on out to the West Coast to take a look at this segment with Dr. Anthony Fauci on Fox 11 Los Angeles.
Statewide political show. You're watching The Issue Is.
And welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Alex Michelson, and this week's guest literally needs no introduction. He is one of the most famous people in the entire country. Dr. Anthony Fauci is the White House's chief medical officer. Dr. Fauci, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Thank you, Alex. Good to be with you.
All right, let's begin with a conversation about where California is at right now. The Golden State has been more cautious than many other states. First to lock down, still has a mask mandate as compared to other states like Texas, Florida that are a lot more laxed. Now that we've seen some real results for the last several weeks, how do you assess California's approach and the decision by California's leaders?
You know, the decision to just continue to implement public health measures is a good one. And the reason I say that is that if you look at the country as a whole, we had a very large spike in the winter months, December, January, and into February. And then it started to come down rather sharply. But what's happened right now, it's plateaued at an unacceptably high level. And over the last maybe 2 to 3 weeks, it's inched up. And when I say it, I mean the daily cases have gone from 30 to 40 to 50, and now most recently over 60,000 a day. That is concerning because that is usually the forerunner of another surge, which we don't want to happen because we're in such good position with the vaccines rolling out in a really good fashion where we're vaccinating, maybe 3 million people per day. And every day that goes by, we get closer and closer to better control. So we get concerned when, understandably, states want to cut loose, they want to get back to normal, and they pull back a lot on the restrictions, and that just leads to this danger of rebounding. So, we're trying to get the message, hang in there a bit longer, we're going to get through this, and this is going to end, but don't declare victory prematurely.
But California right now is reopening in a pretty significant way. At the same time, we are seeing those case surges in other parts of the country. We haven't seen that yet here in California. And we're learning about all these new variants. Should California maybe pause its reopening right now? Is it too much too soon?
Well, I think they need to be flexible and determine if you start to see a tick up to just pull back a bit. I mean, one of the things that's so important is to make sure that people continue to wear masks, as you see in this shot on the screen right now. That's really important. You don't ever want to underestimate the importance of mask wearing. The issue of restaurants and bars and things, that can be problematic if people start congregating indoors a bit too much, and then you could get the concern that I'm talking about.
This week we had news that Johnson & Johnson had to essentially toss out 15 million doses of the vaccine because of human error at an American plant. How does that happen? And what does that do to our timetable for vaccinations in this country?
Well, Alex, you answered your own question. It happened because it's human error. Yeah. And those things do happen. Thank goodness none of the doses that were involved in that particular incident have come out of that place and been administered to people in this country. So if people have a concern, did we get a bad batch? No, absolutely not. This was caught in time. It's under investigation by the Food and Drug Administration. And with regard to your question about the timetable, J&J has guaranteed that they will have the 100 million doses to us that they promised by the end of May. So the bottom line answer, this should not interfere with our timetable.
That is good news. Love hearing that. This week, some more good news. The director of the CDC said something that really caught my attention. I want to play that for you and get you to respond.
Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, and that it's not just in the clinical trials, but it's also in real-world data.
So if that is true, that if I'm vaccinated, I can't spread the disease, why then do I have to wear a mask? And does that knowledge change our thoughts about when we can open up?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Alex. And what Dr. Walensky was saying is that the preliminary data that she was talking about strongly suggests that vaccinated people do not spread it. What we're waiting for and what the CDC is waiting for before they pull back on the recommendation of wearing masks, even though you're vaccinated, is a definitive proof of that. And I think it will be coming soon. So what you're likely going to see as more data accumulate is a recommendation or a statement that, in fact, if you are vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. But we're not there yet. We are getting there quickly. And there are a number of studies that are going on right now that are going to nail that down.
When you say soon, what does that mean? A few weeks, a few months? What are we looking at here in terms of...
Yeah, it's a good question, Alex, and I can't give you a definitive answer. I know there's one big study on college campuses that started a few days ago that my institute is funding, namely in a college campus setting where you could really monitor things very, very closely to answer the very question that you're asking. That will likely take a few months to get a definitive answer to that. But there are other studies that are going on that can actually underscore or confirm what you just heard Dr. Walensky say. So it might be happening before a few months, but I can't guarantee.
And if that is found to be the case, are we essentially looking at 100% reopening then?
That's going to really depend. I mean, there are a few things going on that people should understand. There's the level of vaccination. I mean, if you get the overwhelming proportion of the population vaccinated, that almost certainly is going to be associated with a marked diminution in the level of infection in the community, namely the number of new infections per day. I think you're going to see both of those things happening simultaneously. People being vaccinated and the level going down to a very, very low level. 60,000 new cases in a day is not a low level. We've got to get way down. When we do, Alex, then you're going to start seeing a pretty rapid progression towards what you and I would consider as close to normal.
Well, and there's a question about how to incentivize that, right? There is a discussion now about so-called vaccine passports. That would be, for example, you can't fly unless you show proof of vaccination. Right now, kids have to show proof of vaccination to get into school. Does that make sense scientifically, practically, legally? I mean, what do you think of that concept?
You just gave the three words that have different answers to them. Legally, practically. The fact is, from the standpoint of practicality, there is merit to that. There are a lot of concerns and objections about discrimination for people who don't, or Big Brother looking over you and giving you the right or not to enter into a theater or into a restaurant. It's a very controversial issue right now. But you can understand that there may be individual independent entities, not at the level of the federal government, but there may be some school districts that would say, unless you're vaccinated, you can't get in. Or some places of employment that say, unless you're vaccinated, you can't come in. That's apart from a broad umbrella concern or control by the federal government. I don't think you're going to see a federal government mandate about that. It might be at the local level, though.
Interesting. All right. Well, we like to have some fun on this show as well. And you really have become a preeminent cultural figure. I've got my Fouch on the couch pillow right here that I have in my office. And just a few weeks ago, a comedian named Matthew Friend did an impression of you on our show. I want you to watch it and then assess.
Well, what you need to understand, Alex, is I am so glad to be here right now because I am indoors with no one around me, so I can finally have my mask off my face. I can breathe again. More and more people should be wearing masks, as you know.
So what do you make of that?
He did a great job, Alex.
So what is the weirdest or coolest or most unexpected thing that's happened to you since you've become this sort of newfound cultural figure? A moment of that was just so surreal for you.
Oh, there were several of them, but one that I do remember was doing an Instagram with Julia Roberts, one of the most extraordinary, beautiful, and talented actresses, sitting there and having a conversation, in the sense of our being friends, So who would have thought when I was watching A Pretty Woman a couple of decades ago that I'd be sitting down having a conversation with Julia Roberts? She really is an extraordinarily nice person. It's just, that was very impressive upon me. What a really nice person she was.
You are the new Richard Gere, Dr. Fauci. Before we go, one more fun thing. I know you're a big basketball guy like me. You joined us on our show 9 months ago, and you made this prediction. Who's going to win the NBA Finals this year?
Well, I have to say the Lakers for sure.
You were right. So this year, Lakers are tough. You're a Brooklyn guy. They got a good team going. Who wins the finals?
I still think it's going to be the Lakers, to be honest with you. And I said that, I got a couple of phone calls from Brooklyn saying they're going to disown me because I didn't say Brooklyn, but I still got to go with L.A.
All right, and you're also a huge baseball guy. Opening day this week, that's a moment to celebrate for this entire country. Who do you think wins the World Series?
I get asked this. I have great confidence in the Nats. They had a really bad year last year. They came in last. But remember, in 2019, they were spectacular and won the World Series. So we're going to see a repeat of 2019.
Well, of course, we here in Los Angeles are rooting for a repeat of 2020 when the Dodgers won the World Series. Dr. Fauci, we love to play music on this show. So we are now going to play George Harrison's Here Comes the Sun. Because at the max vaccination site at the Moscone Center in San Francisco, they play this song as people are vaccinated, and then the people cheer when they hear it. So hopefully see a lot of sunshine in the coming months. Dr. Fauci, thank you for all that you have done for this country.
Thank you very much, Alex. Great to be with you.
All right, most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. More news now from Fox is next, everyone. Welcome back to News Now from Fox, everybody. We're taking a live look at gorgeous downtown Chicago, Illinois. Absolutely, positively beautiful this Monday morning. I'm going to head on over to Fox 32's website. Remember, News Now from Fox would not be possible without the Fox-owned and operated stations across the country. Currently 60 degrees in Chicago, which is quite nice. It does appear that there is a little bit of rain in the area, though. They are expected to reach a high today of 70 degrees. And that's pretty shocking to me because I spoke to one of my best friends this weekend who is living in the Chicago area. Well, she's about an hour west of the city, but I spoke with her on Friday and she said that it was still cold out there. So I don't know what happened over the weekend. Matter of fact, Chicagoans took advantage of relaxing COVID restrictions on what was called a beautiful Easter Sunday out there in the Windy City. It appears Easter 2020 versus Easter 2021, or excuse me, 2021. A little bit of a difference out there. But yeah, 70 degrees in Chicago. Wow, I don't think you can ask for anything better on an April day on a Monday. That's that. The reason I took you out to Chicago is because Fox 32's Joni Lum is here to talk about 2 more vaccination sites opening in the Windy City today. One is located right near Wrigley Field. Again, Joni Lum is there this morning with the details.
I'm Joni Lum in Chicago at Wrigley Field, home of the Cubs and also home of one of Chicago's new mass vaccination sites. It's going to open here at the Conference Center here at Wrigley Field, Gallagher Way, and this is the corner of Waveland and Clark Street. The focus here is on communities of color, need, and also the homeless population. Vaccines will be given by Advocate Aurora Health, which includes Illinois Masonic Medical Center. The Chicago Cubs and local social service agencies will talk today about helping the needy get access to COVID-19 vaccines, including low-income, vulnerable populations. This facility will be able to serve 2,000 doses a day by appointment only. No walk-up registration. And in the past, that has been a problem for some people who have been out there trying to get the vaccine. Here, any Chicago resident categories 1A, 1B, and 1C can get the vaccine. That includes essential workers. They just have to show proof of residency. Also on the south side, the city's opening a mass vaccination site at Chicago State University. Officials say no insurance is required and there will be no questions about immigration status. In Chicago, I'm Joni Lum reporting.
All right, Joni, thank you so much for that. In Detroit, Michigan, News Now from Fox. Take a look at the stadium, everybody. Baseball in full swing across the country. A lot of people excited to get back to somewhat normal and be able to attend sporting events there. Absolutely positively gorgeous. The reason I took you out there here on News Now from Fox is because coming up next, we have a report from Fox 2 in Detroit. They're talking about hospitals and higher cases of COVID-19. Again, some are calling it a 4th wave.
On February 28th, Beaumont Health System had 128 COVID patients in its 8 hospitals across Metro Detroit. Now, a month later, that number has exceeded 500.
It does seem, and again, it's early in the surge, so until we really gather some data, it's harder to know for sure. But it does look like the patients are a bit sicker than they were in the last surge.
And these new patients are a lot younger.
Majority of patients are between the age of 30 and 50. And I think the main reason for that is the older population. A lot of them have been vaccinated.
Dr. Sims attributes the surge in cases to a couple of things. More than a year into this pandemic, many people are experiencing pandemic fatigue. They are gathering more and traveling more. And with that, the risk of contracting the virus inherently increases.
All it takes is one slip, one person who, isn't isolating well or, to sort of get COVID into the mix.
And many people are now testing positive for the UK variant, which experts say is much more contagious than the original strain.
We have not yet seen the impact of spring break on this. That's going to make it worse. People were gathering by the hundreds in, some of the southern states on beaches, and then they're going back to where they came from.
Despite the surge in cases, Beaumont has updated its visitation policy. Non-COVID patients are now allowed 1 visitor a day, but that person must be fully vaccinated against the virus.
It helps them get through the day. It helps them heal faster. It keeps them in a better mood. We recognize the fact that part of getting better, part of helping patients through their hospitalization is their social interaction with friends and family who come to visit, that they're not alone there.
And there are some exceptions to that rule. If you're having a baby, you can have your loved one with you. That person does not have to be vaccinated. As well, a child can have a parent or two parents, depending on the circumstances, with them, and those parents do not have to be vaccinated. In Royal Oak, Camila Mary on The Edge.
Vaccination is our way out of this pandemic.
But the reality is we're not there yet. As the COVID infection rate increases across the country, that increase is being seen right here in Michigan.
Numbers that we have been seeing at a national level, but specifically in Michigan, are definitely worrisome.
So Henry Ford Hospital's Detroit, Wyandotte, and Macomb locations have reinstated visitor restrictions.
Over the past 2 weeks, we have seen an increase in the number of cases across Michigan, almost 133% increase in the number of cases being diagnosed. And we also have seen an increase in hospitalization, almost a doubling.
At Henry Ford Hospital, doctors are also seeing a trend in the COVID patients they are treating.
These are younger group ages at the present time who have not been vaccinated.
Medical professionals believe this provides a positive takeaway about the effectiveness of vaccines, which is primarily being seen in the senior population.
We know that these vaccines are working. And the reason we know that these vaccines are working is because the group of people who have been vaccinated now have a decrease in the number of their positivity rate.
That's why doctors continue to push the need for those who are eligible to get vaccinated. At Henry Ford Hospital, the numbers look like this.
We have administered over 204,000 doses of vaccines so far. Fully vaccinated, we've completed doses of over 84,280 people. And we expect that number to exceed 100,000 by the end of this week.
Doctors say if everyone does their part, COVID-19 can be defeated.
The progress we have been making with the vaccination gives us a lot of hope that the end of the pandemic is truly within reach.
But that does not mean you can do away with safety protocols and personal protection equipment.
Wearing a mask, social distancing, avoiding large gatherings, washing our hands. All of these have helped us in the past to bring the rates down.
In Southfield, Ingrid Kelly, Fox 2 News.
Our experience is that this is indeed more transmissible, just as they found in the UK.
State doctors ferociously studying the UK variant of COVID-19 known as B117. Governor Whitmer announcing Michigan has one of the highest rates in the country.
Most of our cases have been associated with outbreaks, and in particular, one very large outbreak at the Department of Corrections.
Dr. Natasha Bagdasarian says about half of Michigan's 908 cases of the UK variant traced to Bellamy Creek Correctional Facility in Ionia.
That has skewed our results a little bit. It's not a random or representative sample from the state as a whole.
The doc says the only way to tell what variant a positive COVID case consists of is to do what's called sequencing. State labs ramping up those efforts, sequencing about 10% of positive cases that come in.
The more the virus transmits, the higher the likelihood of new variants arising.
She says the vaccine is still our best option. It's been shown effective in fighting variants, but less effective in the South African and Brazilian strains. Only the South African strain has been found in Michigan, a child in Jackson County earlier this month. But all it takes is someone to bring them here.
If people are traveling to other states and to other countries, there's a big risk of them bringing back one of these variants.
Spring break travel is happening now. Last weekend, Detroit Metro Airport saw its largest number of flyers since the pandemic started. The doctor says if you're feeling ill, do not fly. And if you do, get tested for COVID before and after you return. Jessica Dupnack, Fox 2 News.
He was a personal friend, a very good friend. but he left everything right.
And for that reason, Clinton Township Supervisor Bob Cannon says he isn't worried about the strength of his police department. But the loss of Chief Fred Posovitz, a true leader and friend, will be felt for a very long time.
It will be hard to get through this, but we will, and we'll come out stronger because of Fred Posovitz.
Posovitz spent 41 years at Clinton Township Police Department, rising up through the ranks until becoming chief in 2007. Cannon describes the chief as a family man who treated his officers like they were his own. His work gaining the admiration and respect of police agencies throughout the region. But a great sense of pride came a few years ago when his two sons, Ryan and Eric, who they say were never pressured into police work, decided to join the ranks.
And after they were sworn in by he and I, he told me he was worried about it. But he respected what they wanted to do. They were following his footsteps, and he was extremely proud of that.
I know it's going to be difficult, the loss of their dad, but they're very strong-willed people, and they love their father. And so, with that being said, I know they're going to carry on that family tradition of being good peace officers for Clinton Township.
Macomb County Executive Mark Hackle also heartbroken over the loss of a dear friend and fellow member of law enforcement. Hackle, former Macomb County Sheriff, remembers Posovitz as a true peace officer on and off the job.
There's some kind of a brother and a sisterhood, amongst us. And when something like that happens, it really does hit hard. And, because you kind of grow close to these people, whether they're in your department or not. There's a great connectivity amongst law enforcement officers.
Posovitz's battle with COVID began in early February, but he decided to keep his battle private. His family by his side until the very end. But Cannon says his legacy will live on. He'll make sure of it.
He died doing his job. His name belongs on the wall in Washington, D.C. And that's what we're going to push for. And I'm sure it's going to happen because he was a hero and he died doing his job.
As a frontline worker, I had the COVID and I'm a businessman. So it affects me all three ways.
It's been 1 year since Detroit firefighter Lieutenant Brian Vogel contracted COVID, coughing and spiking a fever while on the job on March 21st, 2020.
I went home in the middle of my shift and I haven't been back since then.
A fever of 103, his oxygen level at 83%. He quarantined at home for 9 days. His kids and coworkers begging him to go to the hospital. He finally did.
On a quarantine floor by myself for 7 days, and I didn't have any contact with my family that whole 7 days, besides my daughter calling me, checking up on me.
COVID-19, double pneumonia, he lost 20 pounds, and it's taken months of therapy to get his strength back. His lungs still aren't there.
This is a real virus. I mean, I'm a true testament to this virus,
A spokesperson for Detroit Fire says 236 firefighters and EMS personnel have had confirmed cases of COVID-19. One has died, Fire Captain Franklin Williams. The past year has not been easy.
During 2020, during the height of the pandemic, our medics answered 58,000 life-threatening calls. Our firefighters were on 22,000 of those calls.
The department has been in the news for other reasons. 2 separate accidents involving firefighters drinking on the job. Vogel feels for his friends and co-workers.
I truly believe that the stress level on the fire department has gone up tremendously because now we're seeing more than we've ever seen.
But Lieutenant Vogel says he won't be seeing any more of it, won't be going on any more runs, because after 28 and a half years of fighting fires, he's still fighting the lingering effects of COVID-19.
It's time for me to retire. My lungs aren't at the capacity right now that I don't feel that I could do my job the way I like to do my job.
His job now, continuing to recover.
Watching any of the basketball games yet?
And concentrate on the restaurants he co-owns, the 2 Firehouse pub locations in St. Clair Shores and Wyandotte.
As a small businessman, we have to open back up.
As a small businessman and a first responder and a COVID patient, Vogel brings a unique perspective to this pandemic and lessons learned. Gratitude for his family, his children, his wife of 34 years, also a COVID survivor.
Especially after going through this, it kind of gives you a second chance, you know what I'm saying? Like it brings things in perspective.
Like appreciation for the doctors and nurses and for his department.
The fire department took very good care of me. They really did.
Encouraging him like he's encouraging the many people still struggling. Vogel says, keep moving.
I know there's people out there that are going through what I've had, and they are experiencing the same thing I'm going through, and you got to fight. You just got to keep going at it and work hard.
In St. Clair Shores, Amy Lang, Fox 2 News.
As a COVID-19 long hauler, Heather Elizabeth Brown wakes up grateful for every day.
I'm so thankful for my life. I'm so thankful to be here.
The Southfield woman staying positive, even though her recovery has now stretched into every season. She checked into Beaumont Royal Oak during last year's spring surge and quickly went downhill.
The doctors came in and they said, we've done all we can, but your lungs are failing. The infection is really severe, and the only thing that we can do to save your life is to put you on a ventilator.
Brown woke up 1 month later. The first person she saw was ICU nurse Zachary Mudge.
He just held my hand and he looked me in my eye and he was just like, hey, you're okay. He was like, it was a scary moment, you know, like we almost lost you, but you know, he said something like, you know, we fought to get you back. You fought to be here. You're okay.
Brown says she talks about Mudge's compassion every single day, which is what makes this Zoom reunion that much sweeter.
To be able to reconnect and see her a year later is one of the best things I've ever been able to experience.
Brown says Mudge's confidence helped her overcome obstacles she faced after waking up, including stroke-like symptoms and having to learn how to walk again. Nearly a year later, she still doesn't feel like her old self.
There's been a lot in terms of, you know, just energy, in terms of fatigue, in terms of memory, in terms of the emotional and, you know, psychological effects.
While Brown isn't back to normal yet, she's still grateful for every day. Now in this season, she and Mudge are especially thankful for an unexpected friendship forged during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Being able to tell somebody how much something that may have seemed so small to them, but was so big and so important to me, is overwhelming.
To know how much of an impact I've made on you has just meant the world to me. And I think we can forget sometimes why we are doing things, and this is just a perfect reminder.
Brown plans to become an advocate for COVID-19 long haulers. She's even writing a book about her experiences. I'm Veronica Meadows, Fox 2 News.
Taking a live look now, everybody, at Clearwater Beach right here in Florida. I have yet to get out there. I keep saying each and every weekend, I'm going to go, and I still haven't gone. It is Monday, April 5th, 2021. We have just surpassed the 8 o'clock hour. Thank you to all you NewsNOWers worldwide for tuning in. We're staying on top of all the top stories across the country that you want and need to know about. So most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break, but we will be right back. All right, back here on News Now from Fox, everybody. We continue to take a live look at gorgeous Clearwater Beach in Florida. I'm going to take you out to West Virginia next year, everybody, to get the latest coronavirus updates from Governor Jim Justice. Again, happy Monday, everyone. I hope you had a great Easter weekend. If any news breaks across the country, we'll have you covered right here.
I would say, we have had 7 deaths since Wednesday. If you'll remember, on Wednesday we had 2, and on Tuesday we had 2. All this is trending in the right way, but I would tell you, just on this wonderful, blessed holiday, I want you to really remember all these folks in your prayers. Please don't let them be alone. If you know any of these families and everything, reach out. A kind word, a wonderful call is so good. But reach out in whatever ways you can. And if you don't know them or whatever, you can always reach out in prayer. So again, I want to wish everybody the happiest Easter, and I would tell you, we've lost 7 additional people. Our 2,677th death in West Virginia is a 99-year-old female from Jackson County. Our 2,678th death, a 91-year-old female from Ohio County. Our 2,679th death is a 77-year-old male from Raleigh County. Our 2,680th death is a 67-year-old male from Greenbrier County. Our 2,681st death is a 41-year-old male from Raleigh County. Our 2,682nd death is an 84-year-old female from Berkeley County. Our 2,683rd death is a 97-year-old female from Ohio County. Our 2,684th death is a 74-year-old male from Jackson County. Our 2,685th death is an 83-year-old female from Putnam County. Our 2,686th death is a 72-year-old female from Hancock County. Our 2,687th death is a 79-year-old male from Fayette County. Our 2,688th death is a 94-year-old male from Harrison County. Again, we've almost lost 2,700 people in the state of West Virginia. We've absolutely got to know just how devastating that is to all of these people, all these families, all their loved ones, and like I said, a very sacred time of year. Please keep them in your prayers. We have 420 new positive cases in the last 24 hours. Our daily positivity rate, 3.48. Our cumulative positivity continues to fall. It's at 5.25. Our active cases are up, 6,642. Our recovered cases, 133,323. Just look, from the standpoint of our active cases and our recovered cases, that widening has closed up just a little bit. We don't want that to happen. We now have 3 counties that are red, Jefferson, Berkeley, and Raleigh counties. We got to be careful. We've got 2 counties up in the Eastern Panhandle, and we got to watch. We've just got to be really careful. As a reminder again, if you're 65 or older, especially you, and you get this kind of uneasy feeling, whether it be anxious or tired or headache or whatever, please just go get a test. You can't take that kind of chance. Please go get a test. We can really stop this with the antibodies if we know it early enough. Our vaccine eligibility, the vaccines are available, to anybody 16 and older and everything. From the vaccine distribution update, we're at 92.6% administration rate right now for our first and second doses. We want to absolutely be at 100%. We have now reached an official milestone in West Virginia where 500,000 West Virginians have been given at least 1 dose. And to To date, West Virginia has administered 518,543 first doses, 342,851 second doses, for a total shots in arms of 861,394 total doses. That's good stuff, really good stuff. But here's the best stuff. For the population 65 years of age and older, we're striving to get to 85%. You know, we have now put 239,726 doses in individuals' arms for the first time, 189,000 in the second dose, and literally many, many lives have been saved. You know, we thank our Veterans Administration, our federal pharmacy partnership with Walgreens, and on and on and on. Again, I want to continue to encourage, especially everyone at the age of 65 and older, please go get your vaccine. All West Virginians age 16 and older can pre-register now. You know, as far as a manufacturing outreach, we're reaching out to our manufacturers and our businesses and to set up private clinics and everything, as well as reaching out if any pastors or whomever it may be, you know, leaders of your church would call in, we'll come there and vaccinate your congregations and you know, their you know, family or whoever it may be. You know, just give us a call. From the standpoint of our churches, if, like I said, if you're a church pastor and you want us to really come and really be able to vaccinate your congregation, call us. From the standpoint of the COVID-19 vaccine info line, it's up there. The vaccine reminders are all up there. You know, it is absolutely your best defense to wear this mask. I know we don't like them, but wear the mask anyway. I mean, for a little bit longer and everything until we get through all this. It's really important, really, really important. You know, get tested, West Virginia. You know, it's free. The testing map's all up there. The drive-through pharmacy testing with Walgreens and Fruth has been very successful. We thank them and thank them and thank them. Our long-term care facilities, we have 8 outbreaks. Our churches, we have 7 outbreaks in 5 counties: Harrison, Kanawha, Fayette, Raleigh, and Nicholas County. You got to watch. You got to watch. We have 93 total cases in our churches now, in 7 active outbreaks in 5 counties. We have to watch. In corrections, we have 9 inmate cases, 13 staff. It's still really good. We're surely watching there. We're going to get to our correctional facilities and start vaccinating there immediately. The guidelines are all up. I told you about wearing your face covering. I've given you over and over and over encouragement to give blood. I continue to ask you to do just that. Now, there's a couple other announcements and everything. This is about our higher ed and the people stepping up and doing really neat stuff. Today, I'd like to recognize a new initiative, the WVACS team that is helping with our vaccination efforts all across our state in a big way. This is a partnership between Higher Ed Policy Commission, the National Guard, the DHHR, that is training health science students from our colleges and universities to support the efforts of our vaccine clinics. So far, more than 1,000 students have signed up to complete the training and help our communities throughout the spring, summer, and fall. Already, more than 100 students have completed the necessary training and have been deployed to help our clinics and all across our state. You know, it just goes on, but it tells us in every way that, again, our higher ed folks are stepping up, our students are stepping up, they're getting on the job training. It is really, really good. We thank them in every way. Good, great stuff. Now, we got these numbers yesterday, and to be perfectly honest, I just, you know, we've almost become numb to good numbers. You know, I say over and over, what's my job? My job is to first and foremost look after the health and safety of all West Virginians. My job right behind that's to mind the store, to look after the economics of all West Virginia. Because if we get the economics right, we're able to do more and more and more for our services, for all of our different people in the state. And if they're upside down, you can't fix the roads, you can't provide services, you're dealing with cuts all the time, you're spinning around with a blindfold on trying to pin the donkey. You know, you just absolutely have got to totally always realize that while the health and safety is paramount, or paramount, the absolutely, it is, you've got to have someone really watching the store. Well, we've done that. West Virginia is continuing to pump more and more and more surpluses. West Virginia's general revenue collections for the month of March came in $27.4 million above estimate. Over and over and over, we keep doing it. That's because we've got West Virginia trending.
All right, everybody, if you're just joining us here on News Now from Fox, good morning. It is Monday, April 5th, 2021. You're hearing the voice of host Pilar Arias coming at you live from the East Coast Hub in Orlando, Florida. Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. More News Now from Fox is next.
Our year's receipts. It's good stuff. We keep moving and moving exactly how we ought to move, and just to tell it like it is without belaboring and going on and on about this. This is why, with the world looking at West Virginia and saying how great West Virginia is doing, from handling the COVID situation to the vaccine administration, nursing homes, all of the good stuff we've done, the world is looking at West Virginia right now. I said right off the get-go in my first State of the State that we have got to do something about changing our image to the world, because they just didn't have any idea how good we really are. Now, I'm telling you that right this minute is our time to put us on a pathway to eliminate our personal income tax. If we wait, we're going to lose time. You're going to lose that spotlight that's on West Virginia if we don't watch out. We don't need to wait. But we've got to craft this thing to where we're really
All right, everybody, welcome back to News Now from Fox. We're taking a live look at aerials from Palmetto, Florida. This is Piney Point Reservoir. It is leaking and workers are rushing to get extra pumps online to avoid a possible catastrophic failure. A controlled release of water continuing at the site for the Piney Point phosphate plant in Manatee County, Florida, which began leaking late last month. Over the weekend, Governor Ron DeSantis declared a state of emergency for Manatee, Pinellas, and Hillsborough counties to ensure resources are allocated for necessary response and recovery. Officials said 2 million to 3 million gallons of water per day have been flowing through a leak in the containment wall for the past week. 20 additional pumps were airlifted in over the weekend by the Florida National Guard and are expected to be up and running today to help drain the water in a controlled release into Tampa Bay. A controlled release of water began on March 30th at a rate of 35 million gallons per day. The additional pumps will help pump 23,500 gallons of water per minute, or 33 million gallons of water per day, into Tampa Bay at Port Manatee. Engineers say a controlled release of water is necessary to prevent a catastrophic failure. Meanwhile, the FAA has issued temporary flight restrictions over Piney Point. So again, this is all unfolding in Palmetto, Florida. We'll be keeping a very close eye on it for you right here on News Now from Fox, and we will continue to do so. So as we take a look at these aerials here in just a moment, I am going to play the latest from officials for you. They are saying that there is fear of the containment wall collapsing at any moment. So far, 316 homes remain under an evacuation notice in Manatee County. Residents and businesses 1 mile to the north of the facility and half a mile to the south have been asked to evacuate. Officials said they are not anticipating additional evacuations. So again, let's watch the latest right here on News Now from Fox.
All right, welcome everyone to our final briefing of today. We will start off with Jacob Sauer, the Director of Public Safety.
Good afternoon. Jake Sauer, Director of Public Safety for Manatee County Government. I'm going to go over a quick recap of the Piney Point situation, and then I'll turn it over to our Chairwoman, Vanessa Ball, for the Manatee County Commission. So as we all know, a leak in the containment wall has been ongoing at the Piney Point facility over the past week. Most recent estimate is below 306 million gallons as of 8 a.m. today. All attempts to plug the area where seepage is occurring was not successful, and that occurred early Saturday morning at around 2:30 a.m. At approximately 10:30 a.m. yesterday, on-site engineers deemed the site too dangerous of imminent collapse, so it was evacuated as well as surrounding residential areas. A portion of the containment wall at the leak site shifted laterally, signifying that structural collapse could occur at any time, and then staff and personnel, as I said before, were evacuated from the site. Evacuation orders were initially ordered on April 2nd for areas a half mile to the south of the site and a mile to the north of the site. Another notification was disseminated yesterday expanding the evacuation area following the incident escalation after engineers had deemed further lateral movement of the wall, and we felt like we had to expand the evacuation area after some inundation maps were released. At least 30 people and pets have been placed into non-congregate sheltering at local hotels with our assistance of 311 and Red Cross. And overnight, the only real big update was that the drone team was forced to move a little bit further away due to some increased flow of water out of the breach. This will show you our new expanded evacuation zone. We do encourage any residents that are living in that evacuation zone to heed those warnings. It is a mandatory evacuation, and they should leave the area if they have not already done so. Local state emergency was approved by the Board of County Commissioners on April 1st, and Governor DeSantis declared a state of emergency for Manatee County on April 3rd. Department of Environmental Protection, Florida Department of Emergency Management have deployed teams to the site, as you heard earlier today from Governor DeSantis and the team behind me. Our Emergency Operations Center has gone to a level 1 full activation. We're here 24 hours a day monitoring the situation with state officials. And the Florida Department of Emergency Management is coordinating the deployment of over 20 pumps to the site, which have already been deployed today. Drone teams have been deployed by the state and will fly once an hour around the berm, and the drones have the capability to detect small-scale changes in the berm structure. So going forward, our number one concern is to ensure the safety of the public, the workers, and the responders in that zone of the Piney Point breach. Remove wastewater from the site in a controlled manner in order to avoid a further collapse of the wall. Continue to monitor, provide situational awareness of the status of the berm, identify and address any unmet equipment or personnel needs. And any Manatee County residents that are experiencing that are in an evacuation zone and are experiencing any hardships, they should call 311 and we will get them assistance immediately. And here's some pictures of our Chinook from the state, Florida Department of Emergency Management, and Department of Environmental Protection, dropping off some new pumps to the berm site. And with that, I will turn it over to Chairwoman Vanessa Baugh for further comments.
Hello, everyone, and I want to say Happy Easter. As you know, my name is Vanessa Baugh. I'm the chairman of the Manatee County Commission, and this afternoon I am happy to report that no news is good news. By that I mean the steady drawdown of the processed water has continued at Piney Point, and we have thankfully avoided uncontrolled breach that would have endangered people and property in the evacuation zone around the stacks. On behalf of the board, I want to extend our heartfelt thanks and appreciation not only to the dedicated county staff who have worked 24 hours a day throughout this holiday weekend, but also to the many partner agencies who have done the same. Especially thank you to Secretary Valenstein, who and his team from DEP, the Florida Department of Emergency Management, the U.S. Coast Guard, local law enforcement, agencies, and so many others. There are so many to even name them all. Without your response and attention to this, I believe this situation could have been much, much worse. This afternoon, we want to provide you with some important updates regarding the Manatee County and Palmetto drinking water supply. We've gotten a lot of emails about it. Also, including the Manatee County Detention Facility, we're hearing a lot of rumors and misinformation on these topics. I want to address it head on. First, I want to say that Manatee County utility customers can rest assured that their drinking water is completely safe to drink. The water distribution system is a closed system without any way for floodwater to enter. There is also no threat to our primary source of drinking water, Lake Manatee. Residents of North Manatee in the evacuation area who are on wells for their water also at this point have no need for concern. Well water is unaffected so long as the outfall continues to flow safely into Piney Creek. If a breach occurs, we believe that the surface layers of dirt and earth will safely filter any harmful nutrients near the surface. In addition, if an uncontrolled breach does occur, the Department of Health will issue any necessary advisories regarding the safety of well water. The Regional Incident Management Team delivered thousands of pallets of water, bottled water, at our convention center yesterday, and we will make them available to anyone if it becomes necessary. Secretary Valenstein can talk a little bit more about this scenario, but there is little to no impact to drinking water supplies whatsoever at this time. Also, we've had a lot of emails, the Sheriff's Office as well as the Board of County Commissioners regarding our jail. I have spoken to the Sheriff personally just a little while ago. He assures me he's fully aware of the situation and everything is under control. So no need to be concerned. They have it all handled. With that, I have nothing else to report, so overall it's a fairly good report this morning. But the best part of this press conference, in my opinion, is Secretary Valenstein, who I will introduce. And I just want to thank him and his team again for their direct involvement in addressing Piney Point. Without them, it would be a lot worse. Without further ado, Secretary. Thank you.
Again, my name is Noah Valenstein. I have the privilege of serving as Secretary of the Department of Environmental Protection for the great state of Florida. We appreciate working hand in hand with the county and the other agencies here, including the Division of Emergency Management, 24/7 since this has begun. Our focus continues to be directing a controlled discharge to the area where it will have the least environmental impact, Again, the greatest concern at the moment for human health and safety is the risk of an uncontrolled discharge. We urge you to monitor mymanatee.org, or if you're within the county, call 311 for up-to-date information on evacuation orders. And again, we urge you to take those seriously. Our focus continues to be on monitoring. Again, the monitoring wells around the site showed an impact to groundwater. Our monitoring teams are out 7 days a week monitoring our coastal waters around where the controlled discharge is to catch any impacts to our environment to make sure we hold HRK fully accountable for this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. Again, I'm Dr. Scott Hopes. I'm Manatee County Administrator. With that, we will take a few questions. Oh.
He mentioned that there was 35 million gallons of water being pumped out on average about a day. He also mentioned the additional pumps that have been brought in.
Correct.
And he mentioned another 35 million. I don't know if that's a total or addition.
Where we are is with the additional pumps, we'll probably be able to nearly double the amount of water that we're taking out. I'm pleased to report that when we started this, we were well over, I think the total was about 480 million gallons. As of last night, I think we were down to about 345 million gallons, and the latest report is we're now below 300 million gallons. So the controlled release is working. The breach release is traveling the direction that we anticipated and planned for. So we believe that probably by Tuesday we're going to be in a much better position, and the risk level will have decreased significantly with the governor's assets. I don't believe the pumps on the berm are yet operational. They're running the plumbing right now. By tomorrow morning, they should be running at full capacity.
Are there still people working at Piney Point? People on the ground pumping water out, and people like at the port? I'm just wondering if they're evacuating.
No. We're very fortunate. The question was, are there human assets on the ground at Piney Point and at the port? The port now has maintained full operation. If they were not operating, we wouldn't have fuel in the gas stations. So they are in full operation. They are outside of any of the danger areas and all the potential flood models. We do have people, and DEP and emergency management have a few people on site. Obviously, they're hooking up the pumps and the plumbing and getting ready to start dramatically increasing the water that's pulled out of there. And DEP has technicians at the port constantly taking water samples as the water is flowing through. So.
And what's the stability of the gypsum stacks on the site? What happens to those if there's a full breach?
What? Pardon me?
What happens to the gypsum stacks if there's a full breach of this water?
Well, as we had reported earlier, if there were to be a full breach, a section of the gypsum stack would be part of that breach. The current expectation is, should there be a full breach, it would be in the eastern or southeastern wall. The good news is, even though we saw an increase around 3 a.m. this morning, it seems to have plateaued and maintained the flow. Manatee County now has a waterfall, and we also have a canyon in Manatee County, but it's under control. One more question.
Are there any additional breaches, any additional cracks in this line? And can you say anything about just kind of imminent collapse overall? Is there anything?
Looking at the volume of water that has been removed and the somewhat stability of the current breach, I think the team is much more comfortable today than we were yesterday. And with the additional pumps tomorrow, I believe we're going to be in an even better position. We are not out of the critical area yet. All right. Thank you very much. And that will be all with regards to press conferences today. Appreciate it.
All right, everybody, so that was the latest from officials out here. Here's a live look right now of that reservoir in Palmetto, Florida. Again, you are watching News Now from Fox. We're all about live, raw, unfiltered, keeping you up to speed with everything that you want and need to know about. So thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you guys are having a great morning. Hope you had a great Easter weekend. I am going to try to get an update from Fox 11 Los Angeles. It appears a pair of earthquakes struck Southern California, South Los Angeles to be in particular, but they did rattle Southern California. 2 earthquakes within a half hour this morning were felt across the region, waking up many residents. The first was a preliminary 3.3 magnitude earthquake that struck near the unincorporated Lenox area at 4:15 local time with a depth of 12 miles. The second, a sharp preliminary 4.1 magnitude tremblor, hit the same area at 4:44 this morning, also with a depth of 12 miles. According to the USGS, the quake was felt in areas such as Playa del Rey, Santa Monica, Redondo Beach, and Torrance. So again, I'm trying to get some more information from Fox 11 Los Angeles. More News Now from Fox is 2 minutes away, everyone. All right, everybody, welcome back to News Now from Fox. Pilar Arias here with you. Hope you guys are having a great Monday so far. Thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, we will stay on top of this breaking news from Palmetto, Florida for you right here on News Now from Fox. But I'm coming at you live from our East Coast hub in Orlando, Florida. I do want to show you a segment here that our very own Rain Augustine put together, talking about use of emotional testimony during the Derek Chauvin trial. Don't forget, News Now from Fox is covering it gavel to gavel right here for you. The testimony expected to resume at 10:30 this morning. We will be taking Fox 9 Minneapolis' coverage right at the top of the 10 o'clock hour. For those of you watching on YouTube, that does mean we will launch a separate YouTube stream. Just wanted to give you a heads up right now while I had a moment. Again, those of you who are watching on YouTube, we will launch a different YouTube stream and end this stream right at the 10 o'clock Eastern hour. So good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's get to that interview with Rain Augustine.
Welcome back to News Now from Fox. My name is Rain Augustine, and right now I have the pleasure of speaking with Distinguished Professor of Law at Loyola University New Orleans College of Law, Dane Cialino. Dane, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you're here to offer your expertise and commentary on the Chauvin trial, and it's been a very, very long week. We have seen testimony from witnesses, opening statements, arguments, very gruesome video we've also seen. And you were saying a little bit earlier that something in particular has struck you and caught your attention during this trial.
Absolutely. The emotional nature and impact of much of the testimony from many of the witnesses is really somewhat unusual. The typical paradigm, of course, and this goes back to a classic quote from Aristotle in the 4th century BC, is that law is, quote, reason free from passion. And under that paradigm, jurors are told by the judge in instructions that they're only to consider facts and law, not to consider any emotional impact or extrajudicial influences on their decision making, which means that the real issue in the case is kind of limited to a window of minutes. What happened when Derek Chauvin had George Floyd pinned to the street? And of course, we're going to later in the trial get down into the details from as many as nearly a dozen medical experts about what caused Mr. Floyd's death. What role did trauma and asphyxiation play in this death? What role did intoxicants play, like methamphetamine, fentanyl? He was also COVID positive. All of those kind of logical aspects of the trial are going to play a role here. But right now in this first week, very emotional testimony from a number of different witnesses.
And it seems like this kind of seems a bit unusual for you.
Well, I mean, we heard the prosecution's obviously humanizing George Floyd, presenting a story of how important this trial is, not just to Derek Chauvin, but to the country. But recently, for example, his girlfriend testified, was crying, putting in some background about his drug abuse. And even, for example, the store clerk testified that he was in disbelief and felt guilt about what had happened to George Floyd as a result of him reporting the counterfeit bill that was given to him. Bystanders crying, saying that this changed their lives. One bystander saying that she thought George Floyd looked like her father and her cousins, and she was very saddened by what had happened and mad about it as well. So, again, all very emotional, and I was a little surprised that the judge allowed so much testimony of that nature in. Usually you would see a little bit less of it, but the judge, I think, is giving the prosecution very broad leeway. Now, under the law, the prosecutor is entitled to put on this sort of evidence to give kind of an emotional context and a framework for the decision making. And even though we know that jurors are supposed to only consider the facts and the law, reason free from passion, to use that Aristotle quote again, we just know as a practical matter. I mean, even Aristotle knew that pathos, emotion, was a key aspect of advocacy and what advocates need to do to persuade. Psychological studies in the more recent times have confirmed that that jurors make mood congruent judgments. They decide facts based on how they feel about the parties and the circumstances. So for those reasons, it doesn't surprise me that the prosecution is doing what it's doing. The only thing that's surprising is that they're doing as much of it and the judge is allowing as much of it as he is.
Now, also, so Judge Peter Cahill recently, I think it was Wednesday, I believe, he told Genevieve Hansen, the firefighter who was off duty at the time of Mr. Floyd's death, that she wasn't allowed to argue with the court. He told her, don't argue with the counsel, just answer the questions and do not volunteer any more information that is requested. But the jurors already heard that testimony. I mean, I'm sure it's hard for, even though they are instructed to not consider what is not allowed, do you think that still plays a role in their decision somehow?
Oh, no doubt about it. As trial lawyers always say, you can't unring a bell. Once those jurors have heard that testimony, the judge can admonish them all day long not to consider it in making their decisions, but it's out there. And likewise, when the judge at the conclusion of this case looks all of those jurors in the eye and tells them that they can't consider emotional factors in making their decisions, we all know that is something that is going to be unavoidable.
So it seems like emotional evidence and testimony will definitely have an impact, at least on the verdict.
No doubt.
So I want to switch gears to another topic. This case is being drawing some similar parallels to other civil rights cases. A lot of people are bringing up the Rodney King case, for example. How do you think this will impact the future of civil rights? Is this a defining moment?
Well, again, people outside of the courthouse have said that this trial is a referendum on how far America has come in its quest for equality and justice for all. You know, that's certainly understandable that this trial is being viewed as much larger than the facts of what happened in front of the Cup food store that day. But it still is a trial of Derek Chauvin. It is his liberty is at stake, and he is presumed innocent. And first and foremost, this trial needs to satisfy due process, and it needs to be done fairly. Now, its larger impact is something that really the judge should not be concerned about. The judge is there to protect Mr. Chauvin's rights and to assure that the prosecutor gets an opportunity to put on a fair case and to hold the prosecutor to the prosecutor's burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It's hard to think about this case in the narrow sense, which is Derek Chauvin guilty? If it was just about a guy named Derek Chauvin, the media would not be interested. This would not be live streamed throughout from start to finish. So we all see the larger impact of this, but in that courtroom, the jurors and the judge need to do whatever they can do to make this trial about Derek Chauvin's guilt or innocence.
It's definitely gained a lot of pre-trial publicity. We saw a few jurors were actually dismissed because they were aware of the settlement that the Floyd family received. A lot of what is the impact of the publicity of this trial? You keep mentioning how the goal is to make sure that Mr. Chauvin receives a fair trial. A lot of people are asking, is that even possible at this point?
And that's a really good question to ask, because there was lengthy voir dire during jury selection, and nearly all of the jurors had heard about the case. So there was really no way to do this in a perfect clean room setting where the jurors would have no views on the social issues that are impacted by this trial, or even many had preconceived notions of whether what Mr. Chauvin did was appropriate or not. Some of those jurors made it into the box after final selection. So it is going to be extraordinarily difficult for those jurors to set aside what's going on outside of the courtroom, what they hear from what they hear in the courtroom. So again, very difficult trial for this judge to manage.
So as we look forward to week 2, what is something that you are looking forward to, not looking forward to, but what's something that you will be paying attention to?
Well, I think we're going to make the transition from this extraordinarily emotional testimony that is all about humanizing Mr. Floyd and putting the trial into the larger social context into kind of some of the nitty-gritty pathology, toxicology of what was in Mr. Floyd's system, what effect trauma and asphyxiation had in his death, what role those intoxicants might have had. Again, much more essentially cold and scientific than what we've seen during week 1. But at the end of the day, those are the key factual issues that this jury is going to have to determine.
All right, Dane Ciolino, Distinguished Professor of Law at Loyola University, New Orleans. Thank you so much for joining us on NewsNOW from Fox.
Before we get to the top of the hour, everybody, most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. More News Now from Fox is next. Welcome back, everybody, to News Now from Fox. We're taking a live look just outside of the Fox News headquarters in New York City. Hope you guys are having a great morning so far and that you had a fabulous Easter weekend. Many parts of the country finally starting to feel like spring and COVID restrictions being lifted. So lots of people actually getting outdoors. Looked a lot different from last Easter, that is for sure. So again, I hope you guys are having a great day so far. I am coming at you live from the News Now from Fox East Coast Hub right here in Orlando, Florida. Good morning, everybody. My name is Pilar Arias. Happy to be with you each and every day. I'm going to be your host all the way until 11 o'clock Eastern when we pass things off to the News Now from Fox headquarters in my hometown of Phoenix, Arizona. So as you can see, we're in a triple box now on the top right-hand side of your screen. That is the White House in Washington, D.C. Bottom right-hand side of your screen, that is Capitol Hill. Now, right here in the state of Florida, the biggest news of the day, well, at least one of the top stories for sure. All Florida residents age 18 and older are now eligible to receive a COVID-19 vaccine. In addition, those 16 and older can receive the Pfizer vaccine. Moderna and Johnson & Johnson have not been approved for minors yet. Vaccine doses are available at vaccination sites and pharmacies across the state. Depending on where you go, you may be offered one of the following vaccines: a 2-dose Pfizer vaccine with 21 days between shots, a 2-dose Moderna vaccine with 28 days between shots, or a 1-dose of Johnson & Johnson. All have received emergency use authorization from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA for short. So a lot of different avenues to get the COVID-19 vaccine if you so choose. I am going to take you guys out now to a gorgeous live look of Clearwater Beach right here in Florida. Absolutely, positively gorgeous this Monday morning. Continuing to stay on top of all the top stories that you want and need to know about. I was looking for a live picture in the state of Florida, or excuse me, in the state of Georgia, our neighbor. I couldn't quite find one, but I'm still going to take you out there anyway for this next update I have for you. This is Georgia Governor Brian Kemp of the Republican Party responding to the fact that the MLB All-Star Game has made a decision to leave Atlanta.
The facts and the truth don't support their narrative. It's because the Election Integrity Act expands access to the polls and ensures the integrity of the ballot box. Then why did MLB move the All-Star Game yesterday? Because Joe Biden and Stacey Abrams have spent days lying to Georgians and the American people. The truth is that Joe Biden hasn't read the bill, and Stacey Abrams is raising millions off the fake outrage that she has created. Even the Washington Post has given President Biden 4 Pinocchios for his false attacks on our new law. Not to mention that his own home state of Delaware has no early voting and requires an excuse to vote absentee. But is Stacey Abrams calling these states and their antiquated election laws Jim Crow 2.0? No, because for her and the partisan activists who support her, it's about raising money and obtaining more power. For them, it's not about the truth. It's not about the facts. Because here's the truth. SB 202 expands access to voting, secures ballot drop boxes around the clock in every county, expands weekends voting, protects no-excuse absentee voting, and levels the playing field on voter ID requirements, as well as streamlining election procedures. And yes, water can be provided to voters that are in line by election workers. And yes, we are not going to allow political organizations or anyone else to harass or electioneer voters who are waiting in line to vote within the 150-foot buffer. Those are the simple facts. Free and fair elections are the foundation of who we are as a state and a nation. Secure, accessible, fair elections are worth the threats. They are worth the boycotts as well as the lawsuits. I want to be clear. I will not be backing down from this fight, and neither are the people who are here with me today. We will not be intimidated, and we will also not be silenced. Major League Baseball, Coca-Cola, and Delta may be scared of Stacey Abrams, Joe Biden, and the left, but I am not, and we are not as well. And it's now my honor to turn the podium over to a great friend and a great Georgia Attorney General, Chris Carr.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon, everybody. Anybody who actually reads this bill quickly sees that it strengthens security, expands access, and improves transparency in Georgia's elections. Again, anybody who actually reads this bill sees how comparing it to the Jim Crow era, one of the most tragic periods in American history, where human beings were killed and truly were prevented from casting their ballot, is preposterous, irresponsible, and fundamentally wrong. We actually diminish the horrors of Jim Crow when we compare the unjustifiable abuses of those times with a photo ID requirement that applies equally to everyone, to expanded voting hours across the state, and to the assurance that the public has access to our electoral process. But that's exactly what Stacey Abrams, Joe Biden, Raphael Warnock, John Ossoff, and so many others have shamefully been doing over the past several weeks. Every time Stacey goes on a late-night talk show, does a friendly podcast, or is a guest on MSNBC, every single word that she says is accepted as an undeniable fact. And that's also what many leaders in America are falling for right now, without doing their own due diligence. And it's not healing our nation, but further dividing us and causing real harm to real people, to real Georgians. So when we defend this bill in court, the Stacey Says standard will not apply. It will all be about the facts and the law. And with that, I want to turn it over to our great congressman from the western part of our state, Drew Ferguson.
Governor, Attorney General, thank you to all of you that are here today defending the openness and the fairness of our elections. I thank you. I have been appalled at the shockingly dishonest and disingenuous statements by not only Major League Baseball, but the corporate CEOs here in our state. What they are saying is wrong, and they should be ashamed. They owe an apology to the men and women that have voted to make sure that Georgia elections are both open and fair.
It is unacceptable. It is unacceptable for corporate CEOs and other outside groups and organizations to call the men and women of the Georgia legislature racist. That is wrong, and it must end. They should apologize now. On top of that, and most importantly, they should apologize to our fellow Georgians for robbing them of the paychecks and the livelihood that will come because of their actions. It is unconscionable for a corporate CEO to put himself or herself ahead.
All right, everybody, good morning. You've been listening in to Georgia officials, in particular Governor Brian Kemp, talking about the decision for the MLB All-Star Game to decide not to be in Atlanta due to a Georgia voting law. But we do have some breaking news out of Southern California this morning that I want to bring you. We have Fox 11 Los Angeles' Good Day LA reporter Chelsea Edwards joining us live to talk about a pair of earthquakes that have struck Southern California. Good morning, Chelsea. How are you?
Good morning. Yeah, we certainly felt them. There were actually three, we now realize. Two of them were foreshocks. They've just confirmed that. And then the one bigger one, a 4.0, definitely jolted people awake. I was already up getting ready for work at that time, but a lot of people were sleeping. It happened at about 4:44 a.m. Here on the Pacific time. So a lot of people asleep. I can tell you my dog certainly felt it. She was fast asleep. She jumped up, tried to get under the bed. She certainly freaked her out. Definitely felt it all across the Southland here. I think we do have a graphic. So that first quake was reported as a 3.3 initially, but it was downgraded to a 3.0. That one hit at 4:15 a.m. Apparently felt from the South Bay to the Montebello area and to Burbank. So really wide range of areas that felt this thing. Then there was a 2.5 magnitude earthquake. That one hit within a minute of the first one. Then the big one that we're talking about, 4:44 a.m. It was a sharp, relatively quick 4.0. It hit about a mile east-northeast of Lenox. Earthquake expert Dr. Lucy Jones tweeted that the movement was thrust, probably not on any mapped fault. So hoping to learn more about that later. Now, the good news is, even with a 4.0, that can at times cause damage. Thankfully, that was not the case here in Los Angeles today. The LA County Fire Department reporting no reports of any kind of damage or injuries to anybody. Again, this was still very early in the morning, so we're hoping to learn more as the sun starts to come up. But pretty big earthquakes hitting the Southern California region today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a lot of people are really afraid of the big one could be looming. I mean, with three in the same morning, what are the thoughts now?
Yeah, well, that's always a concern for anyone who lives in Southern California. You know, we do know that the big one will hit at some point. We don't know whether that's going to be, what the time frame is, whether that's going to be in a year or 10 years or 100 years. But this is a really good reminder for all Southern Californians to be ready, to have a kit that's ready to go, have a first aid kit that's easily accessible just in case. So really good reminder for everybody living here to make sure that you're on top of that in case the big one is coming soon.
All right, Good Day LA reporter Chelsea Edwards joining us live from Inglewood, California this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Taking a live look now, everybody, at the White House in Washington, D.C. Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. More news now from Fox is next. Welcome back, everybody, to News Now from Fox. Again, we are taking a live look at the White House in Washington, D.C. I hope you guys are all having a great morning so far. For those of you who wish you were at a beach, here's a live look at Clearwater Beach in Florida. Again, hope you guys are having a great morning so far and that your Easter weekend was fantastic. Rain Augustine putting together several different interviews for us right here on News Now from Fox. Coming up next right here, I have for you. A Christian relationship coach recently went viral, millions of views, matter of fact, when he and his wife publicly addressed marital issues. News Now from Fox's Rain Augustine caught up with a licensed relationship therapist and a body language expert to break down the viral moment.
Welcome back to News Now from Fox. Now, if you have spent any time on social media or the internet, you've probably seen some discussion about Derek Jackson. He's a very successful married Christian relationship coach and author. And about a week ago, he caused quite the stir when it was revealed that he actually had an affair on his wife with multiple women. He did issue an apology video, and it has millions of views. It's going viral, millions of comments. So I want to bring in two very qualified experts into this conversation. Joining me now is relationship therapist and dating analyst, Dr. Troy Watson. Hey, Dr. Troy.
Hi. Thanks, Rain. Thank you for having me today.
And I would also like to introduce one of the world's leading human behavior analysts and body language expert, Scott Rouse. Scott, we're glad that you're here. We need you today.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you had me. Thanks for having me back. I really appreciate it.
So I want to begin by showing the video. If you haven't seen it, here it is.
On people or being checked on by people that I've had a previous encounter with, but without my wife's knowledge of it and with us having a sexual history, all of it falls under the umbrella of inappropriate, cheating, affair, stepping out. That definitely not in alignment with the vows that I took.
So, Dr. Troy, Derek Jackson teaches women how to heal and find their divine counterpart in a sense. And we know that you hold a doctorate in biblical psychology. What are your thoughts on this situation?
Well, first of all, with Derek Jackson, I never understood why men want to give relationship advice to women when there's so many men out there that needs help from men, because women can't tell men how to date. Women can only express this to women. So a man giving a woman dating advice is like an anteater telling a colony of ants how to stay safe from the anteater. So, but I think that some of the advice he was giving, women can use it, but here's the thing. He's giving advice, but women have to understand that they're the ones who hold most of the power in the relationships. And if you think about it, this is why you have abusive situations. Men are always trying to take the power from the women because the women have the power. So in this instance with women need to stop listening to the men, and they need to find a woman who they can relate with and connect to as far as their relationship situations are going. Now with Derek, he had this problem before he got married. Because I read things. My thing is I help women to restore their faith in relationships and the dating process. And I help them heal so that they can begin to attract the real love that they want. Now with Derek, I sensed long time ago that he was having some issues because he never showed his wife. And for a man to be giving out relationship tips and never show his wife, that's a red flag in itself.
Now,
did I answer your question? Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course. And you also touched on something. You say that women hold the power, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes we may place ourselves in abusive situations. Now, Scott, millions of comments on these videos. People are saying, blink twice if you need help. And they're talking about how tight he's holding her hand. You're the human behavior expert. You're the body language analyst. Did anything in particular stand out to you when you watched the video?
There's a lot in here. There's a lot, and I call what we're seeing here. I'm gonna name this thing the dance of distancing, because we're seeing so many classic behaviors that show you he's distancing himself from this. We three were talking earlier about some things that I'd seen right out of the gate as he was telling what happened. We know he cheated on her. He's saying that. The question isn't whether he cheated on her or not. In my opinion, the question would be, how's he going to move forward? Is he going to move forward with a change? And how does he really feel about what happened? And we can see all that in his body language. You can't hide from what you're actually saying with your body. So here's what I'm seeing. There's a thing called the grief muscle, and it's right up here. And it's really hard to do. I'm trying to do it now. It's like an upside down horseshoe. And if someone's been shot, if someone's in a car wreck, experiencing a lot of pain, a lot of emotional pain, if someone dies, if they're in a divorce and they're not into it, you'll see that grief muscle. Anything that makes them feel grief, make them feel horrible. When he talks about having these affairs and the things coming up, the situations he found himself in, every time you see that grief muscle pop out, it's like a flag. I've never seen one show up and go away so quickly as this one does. I think his personality is huge. And so he begins talking about himself in the third person. We have a pronoun switch here. He goes from I to he, and he actually talks about himself as Derek Jackson. Derek Jackson isn't exempt from this, and as he goes through and tells these things. But every time he hits on something where he did something that he shouldn't have done, then you see that grief muscle kick in, and then it goes away really quickly. So I think he doesn't have two personalities, don't take it that way, but he's bouncing back from the person that we all see and the person that she sees. And I think that woman is probably one of those women that are just about as strong as they get, because he looks afraid to let go of her as we're going through this. And he's also using what we call barriers. And barriers are anything you can put between you and the other person to give you a little space. And so we see his hand is holding her hand, and it's in an odd position. As he holds her hand is on the outside. Her hand is, and it looks uncomfortable because her hand is straight. In a normal situation, you grab your wife's hand and put it under you, and like, I'm protecting you and stuff. So that could tell you one of two things. Either he sees her as the protector, or because his arms are really close to his side, even though he's using what are called illustrators. And that's the things you use when your brain emphasizes specific words or phrases, like I did just then, specific words or phrases. So as he's making his illustrators, he's got her by the hand and he's doing this, but they're fairly low. So his illustrators are fairly close to his body as well. So he's trying to protect himself as he's hanging on to her. And you can see his hand get tighter, and you can see it loosen up some and get tighter and loosen up some. And actually he grips it with two hands at one point, but we can be here for 4 days talking about all that. Those are the basic things I'm seeing is him. He explains what's happening and then separates himself through his pronouns and through the way he's acting and the things he's saying about the situations that he found himself in, and he's trying to distance his professional person from his relationship person. That's what I'm seeing.
It's interesting you share that perspective, because social media was saying the absolute complete opposite. They thought that he looked maybe uncomfortable, that he was holding her hand a little bit tight. But you say that you see a really strong woman. Dr. Troy, I'd like to bring you in right here. You look like you perked up kind of when he said that.
Yes, she is a very strong woman, and she's standing on her faith. But not only that, she is taking so much responsibility in her choices. She chose to love him. She chose to marry him. She chose to have a family with him. So now she is choosing to keep that. And because she's such a woman of faith, she stood up before God and she said, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health. And she is standing on that. And she is living up to that responsibility of the choices she made in her life. And she's not letting anybody say to her she should leave, because she knows she has the power. If she chooses to leave, which she mentioned she did before, but if she chooses to leave, she can. Now, in the words of a famous narcissist, when a woman's fed up, there ain't nothing you could do about it. She knows that. And you know I'm talking about R. Kelly, but she knows she has the power to leave, but she's standing in her faith and in her responsibilities And he may not be taking total responsibility for what he's done, because at some point, because I watched a lot of the videos, he blamed God. Now, and she is the powerful one. He's understanding that she's holding the family together, and she is. And a lot of people in social media are saying she needs to leave, but a lot of people, they don't understand. This is not her boyfriend. This is not just some man she knows. This is her husband. They have a family. They have a life. And she knows she's just not going to give that up that easily. She's a very, very strong woman.
Scott, you actually have a course, bodylanguagetactics.com, where you teach people kind of how to evaluate human behavior. And we were saying earlier that you think women are kind of natural body language analysts.
They are. Their brains take in more information than a man's brain does every time. And I'm not just saying it because it's something I think happened and experienced. That's a fact. We know that through science. Women take in information differently than men do. They store a lot more than we do. That's why when you go out and come back in, your mothers would say, "Who'd you see? Where'd you go? What'd you do? What were they wearing?" All these questions, because they want that information and they can take it in. Whereas men, we just want the basics. How was it? It's good. Okay, great. Where'd you go? That was it. That's all we want. But with women, they take in a lot more information, and they can, let me break this down to you. So from a neurological standpoint, so it'll make more sense, make better sense. There are two parts of the brain that you deal with when you're taking in information. There's the fusiform gyrus. It's about a tenth of an inch on the inside of your skull there on your brain, right in there. And then you have the locus ceruleus, which is back here. This would be the third part of it. Then you have the mid-temporal gyrus, which is right here. Now, the fusiform gyrus collects all the little information you see in here, situationally. Everything, little movements, little things people say, where they move forward, they move back. You don't really notice those things, but your brain catches them. And that catches little things. And then the mid-temporal gyrus catches the big movements. And somebody moves around, you'll watch a car go by, or a baseball fly by, or a train or whatever, or a plane. It catches all those movements, and on someone's body, the big movements. And it sends them all back to that locus ceruleus at the base of the brain. It's about as big as a BB. And that's where it starts getting all that information and comparing it to everything you've ever seen and done before. And when that happens, men get a gut feeling. And we feel like our gut feeling but women get the most powerful power known to man and woman, which is what?
Intuition.
Women's intuition. Yeah, you can't beat it. That's how they know when you come home and you've done something you shouldn't have. That's why we always get in trouble. And they can start from there. And a lot of women blow that off. They say, "Well, I felt like so-and-so." But I wouldn't say, "You're probably right." I'll tell you, you're probably right, because you're seeing things we don't understand and we don't see. You're catching a lot of it that he's not even aware he's putting off, or she, or whoever it is. So women's brains catch a lot more information, and they can break it apart and put it together, and you won't know exactly what it is yet. But later on, your brain, you'll be in the shower, you'll be driving, you go, "You know what? I got it." And that's when you figure that's when your brain has put all that stuff together and says, "Here's what you saw, and that's why you feel this way." Women's intuition, the most powerful force on the planet, I think. And I'm always preaching that. So I always get a lot of people for me and a lot of people against me. A lot of guys are against me. But a lot of women are for me because it's true. And I'm not, again, it's science. It's science. It's facts, not just science-based or whatever.
Scott, for people who are looking to build authentic relationships, what should they look out for?
Look out for the thing, like I said before, pay attention to women's intuition and your gut feeling. Because if you think something's wrong, if you get that feeling, there's a reason you have that feeling. Not just because you're paranoid. A lot of times, you're paranoid, those types of things. It's not that you're paranoid, it's that your brain's seeing things and it's telling you what it is. And you've got to make decisions about what you think may happen next. For example, in this situation, I'm not so sure he's going to do everything he said he would do. There's I could do 4 hours on why I think that. I know we don't have time for that. If I were her, I would keep a short leash on that guy, because I'm not sure he's going to do everything he said he's going to do. Okay, because he said he's wrong and all that, but he keeps separating himself from the situation. Every time she talks about, when she said, "I don't know about anything yet. I've heard everything I've heard so far is this and that." That's when we see that grief muscle again, and we see him get a little bit worried. He gets really, really still, and when he's looking at her as she's speaking, his blink rate is really low. very low. But when she starts talking about the things she doesn't know yet, his blink rate goes way up. It doesn't mean he's lying, doesn't mean he's telling the truth. It just denotes or indicates there's an issue there with him. So every time she's talking about things that she may not know or didn't know and those types of things, that's when he starts getting really still and those eyes start blinking a lot. Again, blinking doesn't mean you're not telling the truth. It doesn't mean you're being honest. It just means there's an issue there. So I'd have to, if I was talking to him about this and I'd say I was interrogating, that's where I'd jump in and start asking him questions and see if I could spot the things where I saw that grief muscle jump back in. Because I know those touch on things he really does feel bad about and feel bad about doing or wishes he hasn't done because it brought a lot of pain to him. But at the same time, again, if I were her, I'd keep an eye on him.
Now, Rain, let me address that. Come in on this. My intuition, as Scott says, this is not a new behavior for him. This is a behavior that was going on well before they were married. And unfortunately, she didn't see the red flags, which is what I teach women to notice. I am proud of her for standing in her responsibility to keep her family together. But this is a behavior he has already been doing, which is why one of the reasons probably he never put his wife on social media, because this is something he had already been doing even before the marriage. And she mentioned during the marriage. So this is not the first time. So this behavior for him, I don't see them staying together because I don't see him changing his behavior altogether. I agree with Scott, but I commend her for trying to keep her family together.
And welcome back to News Now.
All right, everybody. Again, that was our very own Rain Augustine speaking with a therapist and a body language expert talking about a Christian relationship coach recently going viral, millions of views when he and his wife publicly addressed marital issues. Viral moments. It is the Derek Jackson video. Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break, but first here I want to show you how stocks are currently doing. Trading just began for the day and the week. Currently up about 300 points. Again, more news now from Fox is next. We are 25 minutes away from joining Fox 9 Minneapolis's coverage of the Derek Chauvin trial ahead of week 2 officially getting underway, and then testimony is expected to resume at 10:30. Again, more news now from Fox is moments away. Welcome back, everybody, to News Now from Fox. They just switched the live feed on us from the Dow Jones Industrial Big Board to the update that we are expecting any moment from New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. So thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Thank you so much for watching News Now from Fox. My name is Pilar Arias. I'm coming at you live from the East Coast Hub right here in Orlando, Florida. You can see, as I like to call it, Mission Control, where all the beauty and magic of the show happens. This is the set, the desk. You don't just hear or see your News Now from Fox host. We control the entire thing, the graphics, the video, the audio, everything that you see on screen. The hosts entirely control it. Now, News Now from Fox would not be possible without the help of the Fox-owned and operated stations across the country, especially right now, Fox 9 Minneapolis, who have been heavily covering the Derek Chauvin trial. That coverage expected to resume in about 20 minutes here, so at 10 o'clock Eastern, we will have their live coverage, and then at 10:30 is when we are expected to return to the courtroom for the continuation of witness testimony. Week 2, right here, gavel to gavel, live, raw, unfiltered on News Now from Fox. I do want to recap the testimony that we heard on Friday, day 5 of witness testimony. It was a little bit shorter due to the fact that it was Good Friday. Judge Peter Cahill wanted everybody to be able to get out and enjoy the holiday weekend, especially with the fact that there was some pretty intense testimony during the first week of the trial. So again, I want to replay portions of Friday, and then we are going to join Fox 9 Minneapolis at the top of the hour. 10:30 Eastern is when testimony is expected to resume. If any other news breaks across the country, we will have you covered right here on News Now from Fox. But again, everybody, good Monday morning. It is April 5th, 2021. I hope you had a great Easter weekend.
Offering up any resistance to the officers, they could have ended their restraint.
And that was after he was handcuffed and on the ground and no longer resisting?
Correct.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Nelson.
Good afternoon, Sergeant Pluger.
Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you for being with us today.
Dog watch shift, the overnight shift.
Now, when you're working as a shift sergeant, do you typically wear a uniform?
Yes, sir.
Outfitted with a body-worn camera?
Yes, sir.
Do you have a partner?
No. I'm one of 3 sergeants that are on that shift, though, but no partner.
Are you assigned a car?
Yes, sir.
When you ride, then you ride solo?
Yes, sir.
Now, you've, as a Minneapolis police officer, you've signed a certification that you're familiar with various Minneapolis Police Department policies. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And as part of that, in addition to all of the policies that have been introduced, we're just going to focus on that of a critical incident response. All right? Now, when we, looking back to May 2020, you were supervising the dog watch shift. Were you working on May 25, 2020?
Yes, sir, I was.
Okay. And when do you recall beginning your shift?
Like I said, I'm the dog watch shift. Our shift started at 20-30 hours, which is 8:30 p.m.
And what's the first thing you do when you start the shift?
First thing I do is conduct roll call with my officers.
Describe what the roll call involves.
Roll call is basically attendance, making sure all the officers are there, everybody's there, accounted for, they're ready to work. It's a time where we pass along pertinent information about what has gone on during the day, or maybe what crime patterns and things to be aware of. And if the officers have anything that needs to be brought to the table, they can as well. Roll call concludes with me giving the officers their squad assignments and then sending them on their way so that they can start answering 911 calls.
And do you typically receive information from the previous shifts that you can pass it along to the officers you're sending out on your shift?
Sometimes. Sometimes, yeah.
You're generally familiar with the officers that you personally supervise?
Yes.
And other officers within the 3rd precinct? Are you familiar with other officers in the 3rd precinct who are not necessarily on your specific shift?
Oh, yes, yes.
Are you familiar with an individual named Derek Chauvin?
Not personally, but I do know who he is.
Okay. Do you believe you'd recognize him if you saw him?
Absolutely.
Do you see him in the courtroom today?
Yes.
Would you please point to him and... Thank you. Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant? How do you know him?
Like I said, I don't know him personally. We worked out of the same building, but we worked on different shifts. I wasn't his direct supervisor.
Sort of a name and face recognition.
Absolutely.
Ever socialized outside of work?
No.
Are you familiar with an officer named Tu Tao?
Yes, I know who he is.
Okay. Is it the same nature, basically the same type of relationship as the defendant?
Yes, we worked out of the same building, but we were on different shifts.
And Thomas Lane?
Yes.
How would you describe your relationship with Thomas Lane?
He was also on the mid-watch shift, but Thomas Lane did do a rotation when they were new on my shift, and I believe he was on my shift for about a month when he was, I think it was probably his 2nd month on the job.
Have you ever interacted with him outside of a work setting?
No, sir.
And Alexander King?
Him as well. Okay. Same relation. He and Officer Lane were both on my shift for approximately a month, and I believe that was also his 2nd month of being on the job.
So I'd like
that was while they were on their FTO rotation. They rotate between different shifts.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to then bring you back to that roll call on the date of the question. Did you receive a telephone call around roll call time?
I believe the phone call was shortly, just as roll call concluded, yes.
And who was that phone call from?
I received a phone call from Sergeant Kluger, who was the mid-watch sergeant.
Do you recall what Sergeant Kluger, let me back up. Did Sergeant Kluger give you information that you relied upon to take further steps in your duties that night?
Yes.
Okay. What did Sergeant Kluger tell you?
Sergeant Kluger informed me that he was at the hospital at that time, and he was with a male that he described may or may not live. Later on in the night, I found out that that male was Mr. Floyd. He said he was down there at the hospital. He asked me if I would be willing to respond to the incident location of 38th in Chicago because he was tied up at the hospital at the time. He asked me if I would respond down there just to make sure, just in case we had to secure that area and make contact with any of his officers that were there on scene still, because this was had the potential to be a possible critical incident.
Can you describe then what you mean by critical incident?
Usually an incident, an officer-involved incident where either the officer or somebody else has died, or an officer or somebody else has suffered great bodily harm that later led to death.
And based on your knowledge of Minneapolis Police Department policy, what is supposed to happen if there is a critical incident with the crime scene and with the participants?
A crime scene is supposed to be secured, which means locked down, and that is for the purpose to the involved parties or the involved officers usually are chilling and awaiting escort sergeants so that they can be escorted to an interview room downtown. Appropriate notifications are made. IA, homicide, if you will, the upper administration. The area is canvassed, which just means there's a designated amount of officers that are searching the area looking for any witnesses that can give a synopsis of what they saw. And then we wait for the investigators to get there, car 21, and pretty much wait for further information from some of the superiors.
Do you take any steps with respect to body-worn cameras and ensuring that those are activated?
Absolutely.
What do you do?
And make sure that ensure that everybody's body-worn cameras are active and running at all times.
And in this specific case, did you take steps consistent with the procedures you just outlined?
Yes, when I arrived on scene, yes.
At this time, I'd like to publish Exhibit 1. After you got off the phone with Sergeant Kluger, did you go directly to 38th in Chicago?
I told Sergeant Kluger that I didn't mind going down there. I just had to gather some of my things and then I'd head down there. So I believe I got down there to 38th in Chicago at about 9:35 p.m. is when I arrived there.
Were you wearing your body-worn camera?
Yes.
And it was activated?
Yes.
Can you please describe the scene as you recall it when you arrived?
38th in Chicago, so it's kind of a high-profile area. 38th Street and Chicago Avenue are both major thoroughfares in South Minneapolis. When I arrived, the only people that were there were Officers King and Lane, it seemed. There wasn't very many other people around when I arrived there.
Now, you indicated that your body-worn camera was activated, and prior to testifying today, you've had an opportunity to review various still photographs taken from the footage of your body-worn camera. Is that right?
Yes.
And at this time, Your Honor, I'm going to offer Exhibits 81 through 95, which are images taken from Sergeant Edwards' body-worn camera.
Any objection? No, Your Honor. 81 through 95 inclusive are received.
You indicated that Officers King and Lane were at the scene when you arrived?
I did.
Publish Exhibit 81. Do you recognize the individuals in this photograph, Exhibit 81?
I do.
And who is this individual?
It's Officer Lane.
And this?
It's Officer King.
Can you tell the jury what, if any, interaction you had with Officers Lane and King when you arrived?
When I arrived there, I was met by Officer King first. First thing I did was I told him, hey, if your body-worn camera is not on, turn it on now. He did. Officer Lane came out of the car several seconds afterwards, told the same thing to him, and he activated his body-worn camera.
All right, so Lane was initially sitting in the car?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what car?
His squad car, the one that's pictured right there.
Is that 320?
Sure.
Is that a squad car assigned to that sector within the 3rd Precinct?
Yeah, that's a middle watch squad.
After you instructed both officers to activate or make sure their body-worn camera was activated, did you tell them anything else they needed to do?
Yes, I asked them where they had interaction with Mr. Floyd. They told me that they interacted with him on the sidewalk there by their squad car. They also told me they interacted with him on Chicago Avenue, right in front of the Cup Foods store.
And based on those statements, then, did you direct them to place crime scene tape around the area to preserve the scene?
Yes. So with that information, I was able to gather where the incident occurred, and then I instructed them to place crime scene tape around the area so that we could preserve any potential evidence that was there.
First, I'm going to ask to publish Exhibit 82. All right, what do you see in this photograph?
It appears to be Officer King putting up crime scene tape.
And publish Exhibit 1. Do you have one of these up there, a little stylus?
Yeah.
If you could use that to just...
If you're just joining us here on News Now from Fox, good morning. Happy Monday. It's April 5th, 2021. You're hearing the voice of Pilar Arias. We've been watching replay from the courtroom of the Derek Chauvin trial in Minneapolis, Minnesota from Friday. A little bit shorter witness testimony due to the fact that it was Good Friday. Court is expected to resume at 10:30 Eastern. Most of you are going to see a 2-minute commercial break. As soon as we get to the top of the hour, we will be going to Fox 9 Minneapolis' coverage ahead of the trial resuming.
Around that whole intersection, encompassed the entire intersection.
At the time you were having them do this, were there any other officers in the area at the time, or was it just King and Lane?
At that time, I believe it was myself, King and Lane, but I had other officers from my shift responding to the area because I knew we were gonna probably have to lock down that area.
So you asked the other officers to
Yes.
arrive? That wasn't something that was arranged before?
No.
And the purpose
I
of-
asked for additional officers.
Let's try not to talk over each other.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right. And that was for the specific purpose.
While we're in a commercial break, everybody, I do want to let those of you watching on YouTube know that we are actually going to be ending this current stream that you are watching on and launching the Derek Chauvin trial stream. So again, we are going to be ending this stream that you all are watching on, launching a new one here at the top of the hour.
Later on in the night, yes.
But you were taking steps to secure the scene as if it were going to be a critical incident before that?
Yes, sir.
So at this point, did you really know anything about what had happened that caused you to be called out there specifically?
No, I didn't know specifics. No, at that point, I had very little specifics.
For example?
I was waiting for more phone calls from Sergeant Kluger for more direction of what was going on.
For example, you didn't know the defendant was involved at that point, is that right?
Correct.
You had a brief interaction and conversation with King and Lane, is that right?
Yes.
That based then on what they told you, you took some additional steps. Were you able to then communicate with the other officers that you had directed to come to the scene to provide them direction?
Yes.
What did you ask the other officers to do?
A number of the officers I asked to canvass the area. As I explained before, that just means pretty much go door to door, see if there's any potential witnesses that may have been there when the incident occurred, and obtain a synopsis of what they saw, and to get their name and information. It's just searching for any potential witnesses and getting their story.
If we could publish Exhibit 83, another image from your body-worn camera, you see some of the other officers from your shift who you called to help you with the scene.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask you to just identify some of the folks in the picture. We'll start, of course, here. Who's that?
It's Officer Lane.
Right. And this individual?
Officer Nerling.
Okay. And this person?
It's Officer Cape.
Okay. This person?
Officer Oaks.
Okay. And this person?
And Officer Areola.
Okay. And Officer Areola was a fairly new officer at the time?
Yes, sir.
Now, would you please tell the jury just sort of the scope of the security you provided to this scene at that time during these it was the early morning hours now of May 26th, is that right?
Yes, sir.
What did you do?
Shortly thereafter here, I received a call from Pfluger telling me that escort officers or escort sergeants would be coming down, and that he was still downtown or at the hospital. I had been notified, and appropriate people in administration had been notified, and he just requested that the scene just remained secure. So, in answer to your question, we my guys and I just remained there for scene security to ensure that no vehicle or pedestrian traffic entered the crime scene and contaminated our scene.
You made sure no one came in to that roped off area?
Yes.
Did you take any steps with respect to the business cup foods?
Yes.
What did you do?
Sergeant Pfluger asked me if I was able to make contact with the manager, and if so, speak with him, which I did.
How many